So today's presentation that I'm going to do is called Who Are the Edomites Today? From Esau to Zionism. Alright, that's me down there, Brother Safayad, Divine Prospect. So before I start this presentation, I want some participation. Somebody give me, not too long now, because I don't want to hold y'all too long, because I know some of y'all probably got predispositions in regards to the Edomites. But how many of y'all in here are familiar with Esau and the Edomites? That's it? I'm sure. Okay, how many of y'all have heard of Esau and the Edomites? That should be every hand in here, right? All right, cool. You too, Elder?
Well, I know about
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's why he's up in the front. So the reason why I'm touching on this subject is because we have a lot of misconceptions in the Hebrew Israelite community. I know you've heard, like my brother Nazi was saying, we have a lot of brothers that's out there in the street corner. They do their teaching, they do their thing, and they always throw around the term Esau, Edomite. So every white person that walks by, oh, you Edomite, and that is the rhetoric that they're utilizing to identify a people. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the error in what they teach and some truth in what they teach. But what I do is I like to add a lot of academia, a lot of scholarship work, so that way there's something concrete that you can refer back to. Because a lot of times if you ask your brothers, can you show me something scientific? Can you show me something historic? And if you do, give me some resources that I can go to a university or a library to go look up. A lot of times the brothers cannot refer to that, right? So what I like to do is give them something concrete, and at the same time, the elders meant well when they taught what they taught in regards to the Edomites. But at the time, they were limited to certain information that they probably didn't have access to. That's why the Most High now gives us access to the internet, and now we can do a little bit more researching and get our hands a little bit more resources that they didn't have at the time. But at the same time, respect the elders because they did what they knew. And I'm gonna tell you the truth. If it wasn't for Google, I would probably have a little bit of a hard time because some people call me a smart brother, but I have to give the elders, especially Elder here, all the elders credit because of the information they was able to get without Google, without the internet. Come on, man. Y'all got to give them a round of applause. Those elders, man, listen, y'all. I say this to be honest because a lot of our brothers and sisters now, if you was to take the internet away from them, if you was to take the TV away from them and tell them to go study and read a book, to do a test or exam, they most of the time, they may get it, but for the most part, they don't really have a lot of it committed to memory because they figure, oh, I can just Google it on my phone. So I give those brothers a lot of credit, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and start off with this presentation, all right? Now, I have what's called the Trinity method of verifying biblical claims, all right? This is very important because a lot of times when a person teaches, they often mostly do it from one of these perspectives. So what I've done is that, okay, if we have something in Scripture and the Bible or the Tanakh or the New Covenant, whatever y'all want to refer to, if it has a claim in it, how can you verify it? Well, you can get other passages of the text to verify that one text. You can also look into history because the text itself closed at a particular time, right? But history kept going. So you want to examine history to be able to line it up or align it with the text is saying, and also add a dab of science. And the reason why I add a dab of science is because I'm on the forefront dealing with a lot of Kemetic brothers and a lot of Moorish brothers, a lot of people that's out there who are very scientific, very concrete. And whenever we talk about the Bible, it's like, oh, that's a myth, that's fake, this and that. But then when I give brothers the history and the science and show how the scripture is in alignment with it, they can't really argue with it. At least if they don't agree, they can at least accept it. So you know what, brother? That's very good. I appreciate that. So what I want to do with my family is that I want to give y'all what I have so that way y'all can be more concrete when sharing this topic with others, okay? All right. All right, so first we're going to do a scriptural analysis, all right? Now there's a good amount of text in here. I'm going to be doing a lot of reading. Typically I have a reader, but in this case, Sarah, I'm going to do most of the reading, so just bear with me. But we're going to dive into the scriptural analysis first, okay? All right. Now, question is, who is Esau and the Edomites? All right? And I grabbed this image because this is the closest image I can get of what Esau actually looked like, all right? So yeah, he's kind of hairy. He looks like a caveman or a Sasquatch. Oh, you remember that Geico commercial with the caveman? Yeah. Real hairy caveman? Yeah, he kind of looks something like that, right? But we're going to go a little more in depth with it. All right, Genesis chapter 25. All right? Y'all should be familiar with this text. If not, I'm going to go over with y'all. All right, you ready? You ready? Yeah. You ready? Yeah. Here we go. Okay. All right, Jacob and Esau. Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah as wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padam Aram, the sister of Laban the Syrian. Now Isaac pleaded with Yahuwah for his wife because she was barren. And Yahuwah granted his plea, and Rebekah his wife conceived. But the children struggled together within her, and she said, if all is well, why am I like this? So she went to inquire of Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said to her, pay attention to this part, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples shall be separated from your body, 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. All right? So when her days were fulfilled for her to give birth, indeed, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red. Red, right? Now I have a little number coded here. I'm going to get into that in the next slide. But just pay attention to this part. The first came out red. He was like a hairy garment all over, so they called his name Esau. Afterward, his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. So the boys grew, and Esau was a skillful hunter, a man in the field, but Jacob was a mild man and intense. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came into the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary. Therefore his name was called Edom. Keep that in mind. But Jacob said, sell me your birthright as of this day. I'm not going to give you nothing for free. Let's make a barter in exchange. And Esau said, look, I'm about to die. So what is this birthright to me? And Jacob said, wait. Swear to me as of this day. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stewed lentils. Then he ate and drank, arose, and went his way. Thus Esau despised, or had contempt for, his birthright. All right? So if any of you are not familiar with this passage, I'm putting it right square center screen. Now, we get a lot of black Hebrew Israelites that go out there and teach. And what they say is, oh, Esau's a white man because he came out all red and he's the white man. That's what they say, right? You hear that a lot, right? Now, my question is, when I build with these brothers, I said, okay, if Esau is the white man, can you show it to me from Scripture, right? Because they supposedly supposed to be speaking Hebrew, right? Because that's part of your culture. So I asked them if they can show it to me in the text where it's saying that he's the white man or he's white. And they can't really do that. So what they got to do is that they got to interpolate little things here, superimpose things there. But what I'm doing now is that I'm giving y'all some scholarly work so you can go back and reference everything that I'm saying. Don't take nothing I say for granted. Go back and research it, right? So the question is, was Esau white? Now, if you go back and we look to, whoops, not that image. If you go back and we look to this numbering system that I have here, that's called a Strong's Concordance reference, right? That is like elementary, but it's a good way to give you a start in regards to the Hebrew. The reason why you can't use the Strong's to really interpret the full passage is because the Strong's do not include prefixes, suffixes, and infixes, and then you got to know syntaxes in regards to how the sentence is put together. So it's a good reference point when you're looking at the root of the word, but you have to also know the Hebrew itself. That's very important, but it's a good way to start. The reason why I have this here is because anybody can go online, type of Strong's Concordance, you type up and key in H132, and it says, and the first came out red, right? You're following me, right? Okay. As we know that at this time, Jacob and Esau, parents was Isaac and Rebekah, and because of the region where they lived, these were melanated people, right? Nobody will argue with that, right? So the reason why I'm saying is that it's saying, and the first came out red. So they said, oh yeah, right there. It says that he's the white man. I'm like, what? It says red. I said, okay, cool. I'll hold that, no problem. If we jump down, we'll see here, we have red again. Please feed me with that same red. Therefore, his name is called Edom, right? You're following me. You have H122 there, H123 there. Let's go a little bit deeper into that. Anybody here got a Tanakh on them? Anybody got a Tanakh? Anybody? KJV. Okay, I just need somebody to read me a few passages. I don't want people to get bored with my voice. You got one?
I get you one.
Yeah, I mean, anybody. It doesn't matter.
You got somebody for it.
Okay, because anybody can just read them. I just don't want you to get too bored with my voice. Oh, you got one up there? Okay, yeah, right there. All right.
I don't have glasses. I like my glasses. Somebody
want to
read something for you?
Oh, yeah, you got a good voice, bro. Yeah, let's get that. That's good. All right. Okay. I'm going to go over a couple things with y'all. And I want y'all to really understand. Oh, matter of fact, yeah, you can use this. Okay. Yeah. All right. All right, so, brother, if you can get 1 Samuel 16:12. All right, so the first thing that we have there is admoni, right? If you look at the Hebrew, you got the aleph, right? Yeah, 16:12. You got the dalet, you got the mem, the nun, and the yud, right? Now, anytime you have a suffix there, the suffix is what's at the end of the word. You have a nun and a yud. That gives you the yi sound, right? That means that is the object of the verb, right? So I'm giving a little Hebrew grammar here, right? So when you look at the word admoni, it can either be the object of the verb or it could be reference to the adjective, all right? So, Esau is called red. Read 1 Samuel 16:12, brother.
Yes, sir. He sent and brought him. He was ruddy.
Slow down, slow down. He was what?
He was ruddy.
Slow down. Definition is red or ruddy. H132. Y'all can go research that. Keep going, brother.
With fair eyes and a pleasing appearance.
Okay. Now jump to 1742.
1742.
Yes, sir. So it's talking about David now. If y'all don't know who I'm talking about, we're talking about King David.
King David.
Okay. Would y'all agree that King David was black?
Yeah, he was.
Okay. Yeah.
The Philistine peered and saw
This
David,
is good. Goliath.
and he derided him, for he was a youth, ruddy and
He
handsome.
was what?
Ruddy and handsome.
Ruddy. So we hear the word ruddy again. And if you look at the Strong's H132, it's admoni. It's an adjective. Now, Esau is called ruddy or red because you can intertwine either word. In the Hebrew, it's the same word. In English, you can mix it up. Hebrew is the same word, admoni. Okay? Red. So now King David is red. Esau is red. Oh, so you saying that King David is a white man too? They're like, nah, brother, no, he's not a white man. No. So then I say to him, I said, listen, okay, let's slow down for a second, bro. Let's reason. You know, Isaiah says, come, let's reason together, right? Who's this character right here? Anybody knows who this individual is right here? Who's that? What was one of Malcolm X's nicknames? Red. Oh, y'all watching Malcolm X movie, y'all really read the books on Malcolm X. How many of y'all here know who Malcolm X is? Y'all know who Malcolm X is, right? Malcolm X was called Red. But was Malcolm X a white man?
No.
He wasn't? Oh. Interesting. Here's a picture of an African American baby. What color is that baby? But she's like mahogany color, right? Red. Now, you can have a brown baby, you can have a black baby, you can also have a mahogany red baby, and they can come from the same parents. So now when the parents identified Esau, this is what they saw. He came out red, looking like that. Now you're gonna say, no, I don't believe that, but that's not true, because you're saying that David, I'm like, all right, slow down. Jump to the next one. Now we have the name Esau. Esau literally means hairy, right? Esau, we got the ayin, the shin, and we got the final wav at the end, right? Esau, right? So Esau literally means hairy in the Hebrew. So has nothing to do with his skin complexion, has to do with his skin. His hair on his skin, right? We jump down, we got Adam. Adam here, you got the aleph, the delet, and the final mem, right? And Adam means red, ruddy. It can also refer to lentils. What is this right here? Can somebody read that? What is it? A pottage of lentils, right? Okay, brother, get for me Songs of Solomon 5:10. All right, I want you to key into this. I want to really run past. I won't spend too much time on it, but I just want to elaborate because a lot of this stuff, people are not giving you any kind of scholarship to defend what they're saying. So I'm just trying to give you something so you can go back and reference it, right? You got it? Okay, take your time. All right, so while he's doing that, I'm going to skip down to the last one. The last one is Adam. Adam, again, you got the ayin, the delet, and the final mem, right? Now, if you look at the Hebrew, I don't know if y'all can see it. Hebrew has what's called diacritic marks, right? Diacritic marks are the nahud. The nahud are the markings at the bottom to indicate vowel, right? And also Hebrew has gutturals such as bach, okay? Chaf, chwa, ra, when you do your ra. So you have all of that, and these diacritic marks indicate that, but they also indicate whether you're dealing with a proper noun or a regular pronoun. So here we have the same writing, aleph, delet, mem, right? For Adam and Edom. But when you have the diacritic marks down here, you have a shiva and a patak down there, I believe. I can't really see it right now. But here you just have the regular patak, right? Patak gives you the ah sound in Hebrew, right? So when you have two nakuls together, that gives you a proper noun. That is why it's spelled in capital E as Adam. But it's the same word. You understand what I'm saying? You're following me? Not losing nobody, right? Okay, cool. The reason why I'm saying this is because Edom's name means red, but he was called Edom not because of his skin, but he was called Edom because of what? Please feed me with that same red. Now, when you read the text in English, anytime you see something in italicized, that means it's not in the original manuscript. You can go back. Anybody can read the Tanakh, go back to the original manuscript, and you'll see that that word is not there, but they insert it for context. But the reason why he was called red, because the red was a mark, and it was signifying what he sold and what he lost. That's why. So anytime you hear the word Edom, it's referring to the red pottage exchange. Had nothing to do with the color. Y'all feeling me? That's not saying he's not red, because we read up here that he is red, but down here his name is indicating the fact that he lost his birthright for a pottage of lentils. And lentils, if you've ever seen it before, it's actually red. And if you see this pottage of lentils, it actually looks almost similar like the color of this Malcolm X in this child, right? It's the same word that's being used. Adomi is Adom in it. It's the same word as referring to this, the color red. You got that, brother?
Psalm 5:10?
Yes.
Psalm 5:10 says, my beloved is pure.
Slow down. Now, this is the Shulamite wife that Solomon was interacting with, and she's saying this about King Solomon. Okay, read that.
My beloved is pure and purifies sin and is ruddy with vengeance.
Wait, slow down. He's what?
Is ruddy.
He's ruddy. King Solomon is ruddy too? Like father, like son? Well, are they black men? You would say yes. Interesting. Okay, keep reading.
Is ready with vengeance to punish betrayers.
All right. That's Song of Solomon's 5:10?
Yes.
Okay. So, after we've seen what these different words mean, let's move forward, right? So, the question is, was King Solomon red? Actually, Song of Solomon's, you read Song of Solomon's 5:10? Because it should say dazzling in there, or it should say white.
Well, different words.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Read that one more time. I'm going to show y'all what I mean by that. Read that text one more time.
I'm going to read the whole 10.
Sure.
Again. My beloved is pure.
Okay, there we go. Slow down. And in the New King James, it's going to say white. My beloved is white. Right? It says white. Now, if any of y'all got your little mobile phones in your Bibles, it'll say white. So the question is, was King Solomon white?
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't white. The Hebrew word that's used there is zach, right? You have the side and you have the het there, right? And then you have your little diacritic marks. You got the, I think that's a patah. I can't see. No, that's a kametz. That's under there, I believe. And that gives you that ah sound. So if you look at the Strongs, she's not calling him white because of his complexion. She's saying he's dazzling, he's glowing, he has a countenance to him. He's just amazing. That's pretty much what she's referencing to. But if you're not going back to your original Hebrew, you're going to automatically think, oh, he's white. I've heard some KKK members actually preaching from the Bible, and they say, oh, King Solomon's white. It says he's white right there. And I said, brother, do you speak the Hebrew? Can you go back to the original script? It doesn't say that. That's very, very important. That's what the Strong says. It helps to give you a reference to that. So the question is, if Esau had white skin, it would have been described as the following. Laban in the Hebrew. That's a lamed, that's a bait. If you have the dogesh in the middle, it kind of alters that pronunciation. But at the end, you have a final nun. Laban. Give me Genesis 49 and 12. And I'm going to show you. If Esau was white, there would have been a different adjective that would have been used to describe him. You following me? Okay. Yeah, brother.
Genesis 29 and 12.
49, 12.
I'm sorry, 49 and 12. That's what I meant. Red-eyed from wine and white-toothed from milk.
Slow down. White tooth from milk. If somebody brush their teeth and they take care of their teeth, what color is it?
White.
And if you don't, you can go to the dentist, get a little shine up, a little polish, but what color would it be?
White.
White, right? Okay. Jump to Leviticus 13. Give me 42 to 43. I have some images down here. So first we're talking about the teeth, right? That's what white teeth look like. So if a person was Hebrew and they was examining an individual and they wanted to, because Hebrew is a very concrete language. So what happens is, instead of them being very abstract and dealing with appearances, like you would get a Greco-Roman state of mind, they compare things physically. So if I wanted to say what color his shirt is, right? A Hebrew person would this brother right here, the Hebrew person would say, well, that looks like his teeth. So what they're doing is, they're comparing that color to something physical that looks similar to it. Y'all feeling me? You follow me? All right, you can go ahead and get that out.
13, start 42, you say?
Oh yeah, 42, 43.
Okay, we're going to be Leviticus 13, 42. And If in the posterior or frontal baldness there shall be a white.
A what?
A white.
A what?
A white.
A white what?
Affliction.
Keep going.
Streaked with red.
Streaked with what?
Red.
Keep going.
It is an eruption of Zaras.
And that means what? Who knows what Zaras means? Leprosy. Leprosy, right? All right, so what we're doing is we have the priest examining an individual. The Most High told him, listen, anybody that has leprosy, they're unclean. Here is the instructions how to examine them. They will examine and look for a what spot?
Zaras.
A white spot.
White spot.
So if we wanted to call Esau the white man or a white individual, the word Laban would be used. It's not that difficult. Y'all feeling me? Yeah. But now, y'all must say, okay, so what you saying? You're saying that Edomites are not white? I didn't really say that, but let me continue. Can I go? Can I continue? You good? Yeah. All right, good. Let's move forward. All right, let's finish up this story. I'll read this real quick, all right? You good, bro? You good?
Good.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that.
No problem.
All right, y'all can give him a hand. That was good. And I just want to show you in Zechariah, it talks about a white horse. Again, they're using the color to describe something physically that they can associate with. This actually is a white individual. Her skin would be white. So if the priest saw her and she was in the camp, she would be cast out because they would think that, wow, her whole body's full with leprosy. You understand what I'm saying? They would use the word Laban to describe an individual. All right? You following me? All right, cool. All right, so now back to the story. So Rebekah spoke to Jacob, her son, saying, indeed, I heard your father speak to Esau, your brother, saying, bring me some game, make food for me, so I may bless it in the presence of Yahuwah before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me from there 2 choice kids of goats, and I will make savory food according to what I command you. Savory food from them for your father such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father, he may eat it, and he may bless you before his death. Now you're like, oh, wow, Rebekah's doing some grimy stuff right there, right? So he went to his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. So no, Jacob probably had a little whiny voice, so he had to like get his manhood up. I'm Esau, you know what I'm saying? Because Esau was a wild man out in the field, right? So it says here, it says, I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit and eat my game, that your soul may bless me. He said, bring it near to me. I will eat of my son's game so that my soul may bless you. So he brought it near to him, he ate, and he brought him wine and drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, come near now, son, and kiss me. And he came near and kissed him. And he smelled the smell of his clothing and blessed him and said, now remember, at this point, his mother was telling him what to do. She gave him a garment because Jacob said, oh, what if my father feels my skin? She gave him a garment so he could feel like his brother Esau, right? He said here, surely the smell of my son is like the smell of a field which the Lord hath blessed. Pay attention. Therefore, may God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. Let the people serve you and the nations bow down to you. Be master of your brethren and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you and blessed be those who bless you. Now what happened, as soon as Isaac finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out of his presence, Esau's brother came in for hunting. So Esau probably had the game, threw it down, cooked it up, right? So it says here, when Esau heard the words of his father, because now he's coming to his father, and his father, well, who are you? He said, wait, your brother was just here, he's acting like you? Esau heard his words. Esau cried with a great and bitter cry and said to his father, bless me also, O my father. But he said, your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing. And Esau said, is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now look, he has taken away my blessing. And it goes here, it says, and he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said to Esau, indeed, I have made him your master, and all his brethren have given to him as servants. With bread and wine I have sustained him. What shall I do now for you, my son? And Esau said to his father, and Esau said to his father, have you not my blessing? Bless me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth. What? You're giving him a similar blessing to Jacob? And of the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass, when you become restless, that you shall break his yoke from your neck. Now, one thing I want to say about this so we can move forward. Very interesting here. People would say, oh, Rebecca was grimy because she took Jacob and she set Jacob up to go and steal Esau's blessing, right? How many of you would think that that's what Rebecca did? If you were just reading this for the first time, you would think that, right? You would think that, right? Okay. But what people don't realize is that Esau already sold his birthright.
That's right.
He sold it already.
That's right.
But he ain't say nothing about it. Rebecca caught wind of that. And in antiquity, or ancient times, once a father gives a blessing, that's his word. You can't take it back. So Rebecca's like, wow, okay, you know what? Isaac is about to die. Jacob was really the one that should receive the blessing because he got it rightfully. He had a barter exchange with his brother. So I have to set this thing up so he can be blessed, because if I don't, then Esau is going to be blessed, and he's not going to be in his right standing because he's being dishonest. So now Esau was a deceitful one, because Esau didn't say nothing to his father, because if he did, the father would have said, but my son, you sold your birthright. He didn't say that, right?
Right.
You follow me, right? Okay, let's move forward. So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing which his father blessed him. Esau said in his heart, the days of my mourning with my father at hand, I will kill my brother Jacob. And the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger, said to him, surely your brother Esau comforts himself concerning you by intending to kill you. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to my brother Laban. Wow, interesting. In Haran. And stay with him a few days until your brother's spirit turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you here. Why should I be grieved also of you both in one day? Because she knows Isaac is dying. So she said, why should I let you stay here after Isaac dies and your brother killed you? I cannot lose two people in one day. So she sends him away. Now Jacob went out from Beersheba and went to Haran. So he came to a certain place and stayed there all night because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones, put on his head, and lay down in a place to sleep. Then he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and its top reached to heaven. And there the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, Yahuwah stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham, Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I'm spoken to you. That's awesome. The Most High ever speak to you like that? You know how much strength and power you would have to know the Most High is behind you? Alright, so what happened was, after this situation, this is the first time that Jacob is being blessed by the Most High. Prior to this, the Most High never interacted with him. He didn't interact with him from the narrative. Now the Most High confirmed the blessing. Because if he did something wrong, if Isaac did something wrong in blessing Jacob, the Most High would have corrected it right there and said, no, you have supplanted your brother. Esau is the rightful heir. But we have the Most High setting it up, confirming it, right? So 20 years pass after Jacob goes to Mesopotamia. He returns back to Canaan, and now he has a family and children. Now, Jacob and Esau meet. Now, at this point, everybody said, oh, Esau about to cut his head off. Why he going back? The Most High told him to go back. But even though the Most High told him to go back, he was still a little hesitant, right? So let me show you what Jacob did, right? Now Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and there Esau was coming, and with him were 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two maidservants, and he what? Put the maidservants and their children in the front, Leah and her children behind, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then he crossed over before, because the word Hebrew is eri, which means to cross over, right? He crossed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. So now Jacob is coming. He sees Esau and 400 dudes. He's like, oh man, they about to kill him. Hold on. So he takes some of his wife and his children and put them ahead. Why? So if Esau sees this, he can have some compassion. He's thinking, okay, they're not going to kill these women and children, or they may not kill me while they're here, but let me do this first to see how he responds. That's kind of messed up. That's kind of messed up. He didn't have no balls at this time, but you can understand why, because, you know, he's a little scrawny, maybe, you know, being inside. Esau is big and mighty and everything, so I can understand him. I can't really front of him. But the reason why I'm showing you this is because there was no beef. Why didn't Esau bug out on him? So for my assumption, I'm thinking Esau, after years have passed, looked back and saying, you know what, now he's older, 20 years older. He said, wow, I was really foolish at that time. I was really beefing with Jacob, but you know what? He was right to get that blessing because I did sell him my birthright. And remember, Esau was still living with his moms. So you don't know what Rebecca may have said to him. You understand what I'm saying? But at this point, he came to a realization like, you know what? I'm squashing that beef. You know what I'm saying? Now, Jacob didn't know that. He still thinking he had animosity. Then we keep reading, it says, then Esau said, what do you mean by all this company which I met? These are to find favor in the sight of my Lord. But Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. So now Jacob is trying to barter back with him. He has all these men, all this livestock, trying to give it to Esau. He said, I don't want that. It's good. I got enough, man. I'm good. It's like, oh, shoot. So Esau is really not an enemy of Jacob? That's very interesting. Follow me. Jacob said, no, please, I have found favor in your sight, then receive my present from my hand, insomuch as I have seen your face, and though I've seen the face of God, and you were pleased with me. Please take my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. Back then in antiquity, anytime that you had an interaction with somebody, you always had a verbal contract. But the verbal contract was only signified or only important if you exchanged the gift. So now Jacob's saying, if I say this to my brother now, and he takes something from me, that he can't renege on his word. You understand? So Jacob is trying to be smart about the situation, right? So if you keep reading, it says, please take my blessing I brought to you. God dealt gracious with me, and because I have enough. So he urged him, and then Esau took it. Esau said, now let me leave with you some of the people who are with me. So now Esau even gave Jacob some people. But he said, what need is there? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. So now, if you read the rest of the story, because I cut some of it out, they had two huge companies, and they couldn't stay in the same land together. So Esau went south to Mount Seir, and Jacob went towards Canaan. You following me? So those of you who know the story, you know, you see this part, but I'm trying to bring some things out, right? So now, after settling in Mount Seir, Esau's descendants multiplied and built the kingdom and the army. Genesis 36:31. Now there were kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the children of Yisrael. Chief Magadiel and Chief Aram, these were the chiefs of Edom, according to their dwelling places in the land of the possession. Esau was the father of the Edomites. So the reason I'm showing this is because now when they went there to Mount Seir, they built this nation, this kingdom. Now, at this point in time, as you read the story, what happens to Jacob and his descendants? They go into ancient Kemet, or Egypt, right? And they stay there for 400 years. Esau and his people was getting busy building kingdoms, got chiefs and everything. So they got a huge army and a huge kingdom. Let's see why that's important. Now, I'm going to show you a map, right? So you can physically see what's going on here. This right here is the land of Israel. This is the son of Judah. This is the northern part of Israel. This is Philistia, right? Which is now called the West Bank, right? This right here is the area of the kingdom that Esau had. See how big that kingdom is? That's a huge kingdom, right? Now, if you look at a more modern map, this was the breakup in the more modern times, well, not modern times, but at the time of the kingdom being split. This is how big the kingdom of Edom was. All right? So I'm showing y'all this for a reason. Take a look at this map, okay? Now, mind you, Egypt is over here, Mount Sinai is over here, and then they are moving in. You got to travel in to get to the promised land, right? So Edom's first act of bitterness towards Israel. So after you read that story, he's like, you know what? Cool, Esau's good, you know, his descendants might be good, everything is cool, everybody's all right, let's keep it moving. Nah. Numbers 20:14. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. So now the Israelites are leaving out of Egypt, and now they see a kingdom. They said, oh, okay, Moses sent some messengers there, and this is what the messenger said. This is what your brother Israel says, or Yisrael says. You know about all the hardships that have come upon us. So now the word went out what was going on to them back in Egypt. Our ancestors went down to Egypt and we lived there many years. The Egyptians mistreated us and our ancestors, but when we cried out to Yahweh, he heard our cry and sent an angel to bring us out of Egypt, blah, blah, blah. So now the king of Edom is like this. The message is like, yeah, you know, we are, and he's just looking at him like this, right? So if you keep reading, right, he says, please let us pass through your country. We will not go through any field or vineyard or drink water from the well. We will travel on the king's highway and not turn to the left or right until we have passed through your territory. The king of Edom is like, you may not pass through here. If you try, we will march out and attack you with the sword. Now imagine hearing something like that. And then he's like, well, we will go along the main road, and if our livestock drink any of your water, how can you stop livestock from drinking water? He says, we will pay for it. We will only pass through on foot, nothing else. Again, they answered, you may not pass through. Then it's like, okay, the king of Edom's like, okay, they don't take me seriously. So the Edom came out against them with a large and powerful army. Since Edom refused to let them go to the territory, Israel turned away from them. So now, the Most High kept them, you got to understand, the Most High, he knows what he's doing. He allowed this to happen because, remember, the Israelites, or Yisrael was being disobedient. And they had to stay in the wilderness for 40 years. And if you read the story, there was a lot of different obstacles that kept them going directly into the land of Canaan. Even when they attempted, guess what? Some of them got slain. They got killed, right? But at this point, this is one of the obstacles. Now, Edom, the Edomites is now not letting the Israelites pass. Well, I thought the beef was squashed. So the Most High said, okay, they want to do my people like that. I got something for them. So what's the consequence for Edom being so inhospitable to the Israelites? Numbers 24:15 says, then he spoke his message, the prophecy of Balaam, son of Beor, the prophecy of one whose eyes see clearly. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star will come out of Jacob. A scepter will rise out of Yisrael. Edom will be conquered. Seir, his enemy, will be conquered. But Israel will go strong. A ruler will come out of Jacob and destroy the survivors of the city. So now the Most High is using a secular, or he's using a Gentile, because Balaam was a Gentile. He was a Gentile soothsayer. But the Most High was putting this rock on him and had him speak. And now he's like, all right, and since you want to do this to my people, now I'm going to take a kingdom up out of them. A king's going to rise over you, and he's going to wipe you all out. All right, let's move forward. Now, even though this happened, the Most High instructed Israel not to hate Edom, even after their hostility towards them. That's crazy, right? So Deuteronomy 20:27 says, you shall not abhor or hate an Edomite, for he is your brother. I would have been like, what? You see what they did to us? But the Most High said, nah, let me handle this, right? So the Israelites finally made their way into the land that was promised to Jacob. Joshua 5 said the Israelites moved into the wilderness 40 years until all the men, blah, blah, blah. So Yahweh gave to Israel all the land which he had sworn to give them. All right, let's move forward. So now they went in the land, right? First you had a period of judges, then after that you had the kings, right? So Saul, David, and Solomon's contentions with Edom after the establishment of Israel's kingdom. 1 Samuel 14:47 says, so Saul established his sovereignty over Yisrael, fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab, against Ammon, against Edom, against the kings of Zobah, and against the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he harassed them. And he gathered an army and attacked the Amalekites and delivered Israel from the hands of those who plundered it. So at this time, Edom did not just sit back while they was building a kingdom. Edom kept trying to sneak in and do a little thing on the side to try to see if they can kind of, have leverage and push them over. Because, they just coming into the land. They don't know what we're doing. We can go in there and plunder them and get our stuff. But when Saul rose up, Saul was like, nah, y'all not doing that over here. So Saul kept them in check, right? That's all he did. He just kept them from rising up. Let me show you what David did, right? 2 Samuel 18:13 says, and David made himself a name when he returned from killing 18,000 Syrians in the Valley of the Salt. Valley of the Salt near the Dead Sea, right? He also put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom, he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became David's servants. And Yahuwah preserved David wherever he went. So now David said, you know what? Saul was not doing the right thing because these Edomites are still a problem. I'm going to go in there, and not only am I going to make them submit, I'm going to put garrisons or walls up. So if they come in and try to attack, we're going to see it before it comes. And now I'm going to make them my servant. So now, guess what happened? They no longer had a king because they became a vassal state of Yisrael. So David handled his business, right? But now Solomon comes on the scene, had years of prosperity, but then he went and got far and wise, he fell away. So now the Most High, he had to punish him. So if you look at 1 Kings 11:14, now Yahuwah raised up an adversary against Solomon, Hadad the Edomite, who was a descendant of the king in Edom. If you read that story, you know that David tried to get at him after he slayed and killed all the Edomites, but he escaped into Egypt. Once he heard that David was dead, he's like, I'm going to go back and see if I can do my thing and rise up. But it didn't really happen that way. He was just somebody a little harass Solomon a little bit, but it didn't really do much, right? The whole kingdom was still subservient to King Solomon. Now, due to Solomon's disobedience, the kingdom of Israel was split in two. 1 Kings 11:19. Y'all can read that if you want. But that's just letting you know that after Solomon disobeyed, the kingdom was rent from him. He reserved a portion, which was Judah, to his seed, and the other half became northern Israel. Edom's interaction with Israel after the kingdom was split. 1 Kings 22:41. Jehoshaphat, the son of Asa, became king of Judah in the 4th year of Ahab of Israel. There was no king in Edom, only a deputy to the king. So now the Israelites had one of their peoples ruling over the Edomites. Edomites were not allowed to have a king. If you know warfare back in antiquity, if you allow a neighboring kingdom to have a king and they war with you, they're going to continually rise up. If you wipe out that king and put somebody who's a deputy or in the place of a king from your people, they're going to make sure they stay subject to you. You feeling me? Follow me, everybody? All right, good. All right, so now Jehoram, the son of Ahab, became king of Israel, Samaria, in the 18th year. Jehoshaphat of Judah reigned 12 years. Now, the reason why I'm giving you this story, this is something very interesting. So it says, then he went and sent to Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. So the king of Israel sent word to the king of Judah because the king of Moab has rebelled against me. Will you go with me and fight against Moab? And he said, I'll go up. I am as you are. My people are your people. My horses are your horses. So the king of Israel went with the king of Judah and the king of Edom. So now Edom is warring with Judah. Anywhere Judah had a beef, Edom was right by their side. Y'all feeling me? Following me? You good? Good? Okay. So after this is going to tell you the story about the Moabites. The Moabites, they raised up. They tried to go to Edom. Edom put them to shame or whatever the case may be. But the reason I'm showing is because now you see that Edom, the king of Edom, is working with Judah because they are a vassal state. Now in the 5th year of Joram, the king of Ahab. Now mind you, that was 1 Kings. We're jumping into 2 Kings. All of these good and bad kings, right? It says Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat having been king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, began to reign as king of Judah. In his days, Edom revolted against Judah's authority. So now, years has passed. Edom's like, you know what? Nah, son, we don't want to keep being subject to them because they get into fights and all of that, and they have good kings in the back, and these dudes got no stability. We're going to be our own kingdom. So they rose up and made a king over themselves. Now Joram went to Zion and all the chariots with him. That he rose by night and attacked the Edomites, who had surrounded him, and the captains of the chariots, and the troops fled to their tents. Thus Edom had been in revolt against Judah's authority to this day. You feel me? So now they're doing it. They said, you know what? We're not going to be a part of you right now. We're going to be our own kingdom, and you're not going to tell us what to do, right? Now, the prophecy was fulfilled because now they got tired of having that yoke on their neck. The yoke, remember the prophecy? They broke the yoke now. And they're like, no, you're not going to have no control. We're going to do our own thing. 2 Kings, in the 2nd year of Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, Amaziah, the son of Joash, king of Yehudah, became king. He killed 10,000 Edomites in the valley of Salt, the same place where David fought the Syrians at, or the Arameans at. And took Salama, and called his name Joktheel to this day, or Joktheel to this day. In the 17th year, Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, the son of Joram, king of Judah, became to reign. Then Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, came up against Jerusalem to make war, and they besieged Ahaz, but they could not overcome him. At that time, Rezin, king of Syria, captured Elath, which is a southern port here by the Red Sea, right? Elath for Syria, and drove the men of Judah from Elath. Then the Edomites went to Elath and dwelt there because there was no Judahites there. All right, let's move forward. I have some maps down there so you can see. Due to Israel's continued disobedience, the Most High allowed them to be taken into captivity. Leviticus 20 and 22 says, you shall therefore keep all my statutes, my judgments before them, the land I'm bringing you. But guess what? The kings did not listen. So yet Yahuwah testified against Israel, the king of Judah, by all his prophets, every seer saying, turn from your evil ways, keep my commandments and my statutes, according to the law which I commanded your fathers, which I sent you, my servants, the prophets. Nevertheless, they would not hear, but stiffen their necks like the necks of their fathers, who did not believe in Yahuwah their God. Therefore, Yahuwah was very angry with Israel, removed them from his sight. You go forward now. Now, Judah is following the ways of Israel. Then he says, the Most High says, and I will remove Judah from my sight as I removed Israel. And if you look at the rest of this is telling you the history that he sent Babylon to go and pull them away. Because they were trying to still stay in the land, but he says, no, you disobey me, you're coming up out of that land. So they got vomited out, like it says here in Leviticus. Now, why did the Most High condemn the Edomites? So we saw the history about what happened. So why was the Most High mad at the Edomites? It's very interesting. And Obadiah 1:10, it says, because of your violence against your brother Jacob, you will be covered with shame. You will be destroyed forever. On that day, or on the day where Babylonians came and plundered them and took them into captivity, you stood aloof while strangers carried off his wealth and foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem. You are like one of them. You should not gloat over your brother in the day of his misfortune, nor rejoice over the people of Judah in the day of their destruction, nor boast so much in the day of their trouble. You should not march to the gates of the peoples, of my peoples, in the day of their disaster, nor gloat over them in their calamity in the day of their disaster, nor seize their wealth in the day of their disaster. You should not wait at the crossroads to cut down the fugitive, nor hand over the survivors in the day of trouble. So now, the Most High expected Edom to rise up and fight and keep the Babylonians, even though the Most High sent the Babylonians. He was testing the heart of Edom. So, are you going to fight with your brothers? Are you gonna rule with them or reign with them or defend them? No, Edom was like, nah. They was like, yo, this is an opportunity for us to go in there and enact our revenge against them. So they went in there, they took their gold. Anytime a fugitive of Israel or Judah tried to escape, they grabbed them up and gave them to the Babylonians. They did them dirty. And if you keep reading, it says here, do not keep silent, O God, Psalm 83:1, your peace, and do not be still. O God, for behold, your enemies make a tumult, and those who hate you have lifted up their head. They are taking crafty counsel against your people, and consulted together against your sheltered ones. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Yisrael may be remembered no more. Well, who's involved in this? The tents of Edom. Who was in the tents of Edom? All these other people, the Ishmaelites, the Moabites, the Hagarites, Gamel, Ammon, Amalek, Philistia, with the inhabitants of Tyre. So the tents of Edom, where Edom was at, they had all these other foreign nations, and they said, yo, we're going to go and destroy Yisrael. Let's move forward. Now, because that happened, the Mosai said, okay, you want to do that to my people? I got something for you. Obadiah 1:1, the vision of Obadiah. This is what the sovereign Lord says about Edom. We have heard a message from Yahuwah. An envoy was sent to the nations to say, rise, let us go against her for battle. See, I will make you small among the nations. You will be utterly despised. And that day declares Yahuwah, will I not destroy the wise men of Edom, those of understanding in the mountains of Esau? But on Mount Zion will be deliverance. It will be holy. And Jacob will possess his inheritance. Her inheritance is the land. Jacob will be a fire and Joseph a flame. Esau will be stubble and they will be set on fire and destroyed. There will be no survivors in Esau. Deliverers will go up on Mount Zion to govern the mountains of Esau, and the kingdom will be Yahuwah's. The kingdom. We're not talking about just Mount Seir, because now you got Edomites there and Judah. Joel says, then you will know that I am Yahuwah your God, dwell in Zion, my holy hill. Jerusalem will be holy. Never again will foreigners invade her. So the Edomites being in the land made it unholy. Y'all follow me? Keep that in mind. It says, but Egypt will be desolate. Edom, a desert waste because of the violence done to the people of Judah. And those land they shed innocent blood. Judah will be inhabited forever in Jerusalem throughout all generations. Amos 9:11 says, in that day I will restore David's fallen shelter. I will repair his broken walls and restore his ruins, and you will rebuild as it used to be, so that they may possess the remnant of Edom. Because now Edom is in the land. And all nations that bear my name declare who will do these things. And I will bring my people Israel back from exile. They will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. They will plant vineyards and drink their wine. They will make gardens and eat their fruit. I will plant Israel in their own land, never again to be uprooted from the land I have given them to Yahuwah your God. Malachi 1:2 says, I have loved you, says Yahuwah. But you ask, how have you loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother? Declares Yahuwah. Yet I have loved Jacob, but Esau have I hated, and I have turned his hill country into a wasteland, and left his inheritance to the desert jackals. Edom may say, though we have been crushed, we will rebuild the ruins. Who's saying that? Edom is saying we're going to build the ruins. But this is what the Lord Almighty says. They may rebuild, but I will demolish. They will be called the wicked land, a people always under the wrath of Yahuwah. That's the reason why I'm showing you this, okay? So follow me. I'm finishing up with this. The word of Yahuwah came to me and said, son of man, set your face against Mount Seir, prophesied again and said, this is what the sovereign Lord says, I am against you, Mount Seir. I will stretch my hand out against you. I will make you a desolate wasteland. I will turn your towns into ruins. You will be desolate. Then you will know that I am Yahuwah, because you have harbored an ancient hostility and delivered the Israelites over to the sword at the time of their calamity, the time their punishment reached its climax. Therefore, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, I will give you over to bloodshed. Because you have said these two nations and countries will be ours. Edom is plotting, they want the land, ours, and we will take possession of them. Keep that in mind. Even though Yahuwah was there, therefore, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, I will treat you in accordance with the anger and jealousy you have shown in hatred towards them. He said, you said, they have been laid waste and have given us over to us to be devoured. This is what Edom is saying. Then the Most High says, you boasted against me and spoke against me without restraint, and I heard it. Then he goes on to say, I will make you a desolate wasteland. Second address. I'm going to end off in this. This is very important, right? And then I'm going to give you a quick break. After this, there's one more slide in this section. I'm going to give you a quick break. Then you need to come back, because I don't want you to hold and just go through the whole thing, all this information. But pay attention to second address. Has anybody read the book of Esdras? The Apocrypha? Anybody read it here? Okay? And second Esdras 6 and 6, this is very important, because now the key thing is, well, what is this big deal about Edom and Esau? Jacob and Esau. What's this big deal about Jacob and Esau? The Israelites and Edomites. Second Esdras 6 and 6 says, then I planned these things, and they were made through me. Now, you have Ezra speaking or asking the Most High, put it at top Q9, which is a supplication before him, because he sees all these things happening in his time, and he's asking the Most High, well, when is the end going to come? So he sends Uriel, the angel Uriel, to go send a message to him, and this is what the Uriel says. He says, and I answered and said, this is what Ezra is saying, what will be the dividing of times? Or when will the end of the first age and the beginning of the age that follows? He said to me, from Abraham to Isaac, because from him were born Jacob and Esau, for Jacob's hand held Esau's heel from the beginning. What does that mean? Because remember, the Tanakh speaks of, the Torah speaks about that incident and doesn't really give any elaboration on that. It says, for Esau is the end of this age, and Jacob is the beginning of the age that follows. Look at verse 10. For the beginning of a man is his hand, and the end of a man is his heel. Between the heel and the hand, seek for nothing else, Ezra. So what does that mean? That means the reason why Esau came out first, and Jacob had his hand held his heel, it was a prophetic visual showing you that when Esau is finished, Jacob is coming right out afterwards. You feeling me? You follow me? The reason why this is important is because he's saying if you want to know the end of times, that's what you're going to look for. You're going to look for Edom being destroyed completely, and then once he's destroyed, or once his time is fulfilled, where he's trying to take this land and do all this wicked stuff, then Jacob is going to come on the scene. All right? So I'm going to run through this real quick. Again, it's the last slide, and then I'll give you a quick break. Who's responsible for the restoration of Israel? This is very, very important. Isaiah 11:10 says, and in that day shall be a root of Jesse, who will stand as a banner to the people. It shall come to pass in that day, the Lord shall set his hand the second time again to recover the remnant of his people. He will set a banner for the nations and will assemble the outcasts of Israel. 14:1 says, for Yahuwah will have mercy on Jacob and will still choose Israel and settle them in their own land. The stranger will be joined with them, and they will cling to the house of Jacob. Fear not, for I am with you. 43:5 says, I will bring your descendants from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and the south, do not hold them back. My sons from afar, my daughters from the ends of the earth. Jeremiah says, but Yahuwah lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from the lands where he had driven them. For I will bring them back into their land which I have given their fathers. 23:3 says, but I will gather the remnant of the flock from all the country which I have driven them and bring them back to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase. I will set up shepherds over them who will feed them, and they shall fear no more, nor be dismayed. Nor shall they be lacking, says Yahuwah. Behold, the days are coming, says Yahuwah, that I will raise up who? To David a branch of righteousness, Melech, which means a king or a messenger, shall reign and prosper and execute judgment and righteousness in the earth. In his days, Judah will be safe, and Israel will dwell safely. Keep that in mind. Now, this is his name by which he shall be called. Yahuwah Sizquenu. Anybody knows what that reads in Hebrew? What does that mean? Yahuwah, we know what that means. What's Sizquenu? There we go. Righteousness. Righteousness. So this is going to be a title name for a Melech or a Davidic Messiah to come on the scene. Just keep this in mind. For behold, the days are coming, says Yahuwah, that I will bring back from captivity my people, Israel and Judah, says Yahuwah, and I will cause them to return to the land that I give to their fathers, and that they shall possess it. Okay? The text says, out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses is every word established. The reason why it may seem redundant that I'm giving you all this information, because I don't want you to think I'm just pulling it from one source. If you speak to a lot of brothers who teach this stuff, they get one source and that's it. What I just did was give you a compilation of all the text that deals with Edom. So you can see that one stone is not left unturned. Now, one last prophet is speaking. 2 prophets. The third one says, therefore, thus says the Lord God, although I have cast them off among the Gentiles, and although I have scattered them among the countries, yet I shall be a little sanctuary for them in those countries where they have gone. Therefore say, thus says Yahuwah Elohim, I will gather you from the peoples, assemble you from the countries where you've been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel. Who? Yahuwah is saying, it's the Most High. And in verse 34 and 13 says, and I will bring them out from the peoples and gather them from the countries. I will bring them to their own land. I will feed them on the mountains of Yisrael and the valleys and all the inhabited places of the country. I will feed them in good pasture, and their foes shall be on the high mountains of Israel. 37 and 21 says, then say to them, thus says the Lord God, surely I will take the children of Israel from among the nations, wherever they have gone, and will gather them from every side and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land. This is the part of the scripture that's dealing with the valley of the dry bones, where he told them to give them 2 sticks. He's going to put the sticks together, because he said, can these bones live? He's talking about, can they actually come back? Will Yeshua actually come back and be in this land? That's pretty much what that was about. But look at this. And I will make them one nation in the land and on the mountains of Israel, and one king, Ahad Malak, one king, shall be king over them all. They shall no longer be two nations, nor shall they ever be divided into two kingdoms again. Look at this. David, my servant, shall be melech over them, and they shall all have one shepherd. And they shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them, and it shall be an everlasting covenant with them. I will establish them and multiply them. I will set my sanctuary in the midst forevermore. My tabernacle also shall be with them indeed. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. So the question is, what are you referring to at that? Here we're going to break for about 10 minutes from here, 10, 15 minutes. So to round that up, who's responsible for restoring Yisrael and Judah? The Most High. How's he going to do it? He's going to send David, his servant, or somebody from the loins of David, a Mashiach, to go out and redeem them. He's going to make a covenant of peace in the land. A covenant of peace. Peace is shalom. And you know what shalom means? Not just peace. It means complete. Anytime they had shalom, it's whenever they gave a sacrifice to the Most High, their sins were remissed, and they had peace because they know they didn't have wrath with the Most High. Most High didn't have wrath with them. So when you say shalom, you're saying we're complete. You understand what I'm saying? You follow me? So understand that part before we go to the historical part. But scripture-wise, everything we read there said nothing about Esau being the white man. Did it say that? Right. It just said that he was going to be the antagonist, though, against Israel. So he's responsible for beating up on Israel, taking his land. But it said nothing in here about being the white man. So where does this thing come from? So we're going to break for about 10 minutes, and I'm going to jump into that second part, and we're going to find out, okay? Y'all good? Everybody with me? Nobody overload your information. It's going to be real thorough for y'all. Y'all good? Good. All right, let's break for 10 minutes, y'all. All right, so the Babylonian captivity is the period in Jewish history during which a number of Jews of the ancient kingdom of Judah were captives in Babylonia. After the fall of Babylon to the Persian king Cyrus the Great in 539 BCE, exiled Jews began to return to the land of Judah. According to the biblical book of Ezra, construction of a second temple of Jerusalem began at this time. All these events are considered significant in Jewish history and culture, and it had a far-reaching impact on the development of Judaism. The Babylonian captivity had a number of serious effects on Judaism and Jewish culture. For example, the current Hebrew script was adopted during this period, replacing the traditional Israelite script. So the traditional Israelite script was called the Paleo-Hebrew. Paleo-Hebrew, you can actually see it right here. If you look here at these two tablets, this is what's called the Paleo-Hebrew script. When they went into their captivity, they left the Hebrew script, and they only kept it for religious purposes when teaching the Tanakh, and they adopted what's called Aramaic. They were in Aram, which is modern-day Syria, and the Arameans there, most of the people that was in that land, were speaking Aramaic, and they started to adopt Aramaic. Now they've been brought into captivity, now they're like, okay, well, we have to do something to stay unified in this captivity, so they started to create a religion called Judaism. Okay, follow me. You follow me? All right. The Babylonian captivity had a number of serious effects on the exiled Israelites, their religion and culture. Included among these are the most obvious changes was replacing the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet with what is in fact a stylized form of the Aramaic script, now commonly called the modern Hebrew alphabet. Because it is nominative form in the Hebrew is written due to Jewish numeric superiority, changes in the fundamental practices and customs of the Jewish religion, the culmination of biblical prophecy, the compilation of not only the Talmud and Halakha. Halakha is the Jewish religious law. So it tells you day to day how to live by implementing the Tanakh as well as the oral Torah, right? It says, but also the incorporation of the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim, as a part of the canon together with the Torah. These resulting differences in religious practices between returnees and those who remain in Yisrael led to the schism in the Israelites and went forth the creation of separate Samaritan and Jewish entities, all right? So we're going to move forward. Now, while they were in captivity, they created a religion called Judaism to keep them together as a nation. Before, they had the temple. At this time, the Babylonians ransacked and destroyed the temple. So they had no more temple. And at this time, they were taken out of their land into captivity with other foreigners. So they said, okay, you know what? We need to create a religion so that way we can stay together as a people. All right? According to Jewish law, the oral Torah was passed down orally in an unbroken chain from generation to generation until its contents were finally committed to writing following the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, when Jewish civilization was faced with an existential threat. The Mishnah, how many is familiar with the Mishnah in here? Okay? The Mishnah is the first major written redaction. Redaction just means editing of the Jewish oral tradition known as the oral Torah. It's also the first major work of rabbinic literature. The Mishnah was redacted between 180 and 220 CE, so it wasn't written down until this time. Okay? The Gemara, who knows about the Gemara in here? Nobody knows what? The Gemara is the component of the Talmud comprised of rabbinical analysis and commentary of the Mishnah. Okay? After the Mishnah was published by Judah Hanazi, the work was studied exhaustively by generation after generation of rabbis in Babylonia. So now, you no longer have the Levitical priesthood, because that was established when they went back to the land. But when they were in captivity, they had sages and they had rabbis. Okay? Those who were taught, who knew how to speak the Hebrew and knew how to read the Tanakh, because the laymen started to only pick up the Aramaic. You following me? All right. So we're going to move forward. There's a reason why I'm mentioning this. Let's move forward. Now, what happened to the Edomites after the close of the scriptures? Edom is mentioned in the cuneiform inscriptions in the form Udumi. According to the Egyptian inscriptions of Aduma, at times extended their possessions down as far as the borders of Egypt. After the conquest of Judah by the Babylonians, the Edomites were allowed to settle in southern Palestine, which is Judah, right? Okay. If you keep reading, it says at the same time they were driven by the Nabateans from Idumea. So that means that a portion of them was still living in Mount Seir. The Nabateans, another tribe, chased them out, and all of them went to Palestine, or southern Palestine, which is Judah. In southern Palestine, they prospered for over 400 years. Judas Maccabeus, who knows about him? Anybody know who Judas Maccabeus is? All right, conquered their territory for a time. They were again subdued by John Hyrcanus. Okay, and that's 125 BC, by whom they were forced to what? Observe Jewish rites and laws. Now they're implementing and forcing them to take on Judaism. Okay? Not just follow the Tanakh, but Judaism, because Judaism was assigned to the heathen or the Gentiles, because again, most of them could not even read the Tanakh. Follow me. Alright? Now, this is this right here, this is from Flavius Josephus, right? But before I get into that, I want you to read this here. They were then incorporated to the Jewish nation, and their country was called by the Greeks and Romans Idumea. So the Greeks and Romans didn't even refer to it as Judah. They called it Idumea because there was so many Edomites that was living there, right? With Antipater, he was an Edomite, began the Idumean dynasty that ruled over Judea, all right, till its conquest by the Romans. Immediately before the siege of Jerusalem, in 70 CE, 20,000 Edomites under the leadership of John Simeon, Phibius, and Yekah appeared before Jerusalem to fight in behalf of the zealots who were besieging the temple. So that means that when war came, the Romans came to destroy the temple, guess who rose up and fought with the children of Israel? Was the Edomites. They went and they sent 12,000 soldiers to go war with them, because now we're living here. We wouldn't care if we was in Mount Seir, but now we're living with y'all, so now we got to fight back. But what I want y'all to see is that Antipater, who was an Edomite, he was close with the Romans. So this is why Idumea, or the Edomites, were always considered one and one with the Romans, with the children of Israel, because they were working together. To the point where the Romans even installed a king. You heard of King Herod, right? Installed a king over Judah. He was an Edomite. So of course he's not going to do anything in favor of the children of Israel. He's going to do it in favor of who? The Edomites and the Romans. So this is why you get this Hebrew Israelite doctrine that says that the Romans were the Edomites. Why? Because they were working hand in hand. Y'all follow me? Okay, to get from a more reliable source, Flavius Josephus says, but when Hyrcanus heard of the death of Antiochus, he presently made an expedition against the cities of Syria, hoping to find them destitute of fighting men, and as such as were able to defend. However, it was not until the 6th month that he took Medeba, and that not without the greatest distress of his army. After this, he took Samega and the neighboring places. But if you jump down, Hyrcanus took also Dora and Marisa, cities of Idumea, and subdued all the Idumeans, and permitted them to stay in that country if they would circumcise their Gentiles and make use of the laws of the Jews. And they were so desirous of living in the country of their forefathers that they submitted to what? The use of circumcision. 418, and of the rest of the Jewish ways of living. At which time, therefore, this befell them, that they were hereafter no other than Jews. Now, they imposed Judaism on the Edomites, you follow me? Which was a religion that was developed in captivity. And the reason why they had to do that, to force them to be citizens, there were so many Edomites that was amidst the Hebrew Israelites. They was like, yo, right now we got the weapons, we got the leverage. If y'all want to live, y'all need to be down with us. But because our book is holy, we're not going to give you that. We're going to give you this form of oral Torah or rabbinic Judaism, and y'all can adopt that. But y'all also must be circumcised. Very important. All right. Let's move forward. The remainder of Hyrcanus' reign was marked by his efforts to punish his enemies, ward off Syrians, and enlarge Judea's boundaries. All right. Although he struggled in vain to destroy the Ptolemies, he successfully thwarted Syria, encouraging by alliance with Rome, and conquered the unfriendly neighboring territories of Samaria and Idumea. Because now Judah is called Idumea or Edom. He forced Idumea to convert to Judaism, the first example of conversion imposed by the Jews in their history. At this time, right before this time, the Jews were not going to convert anybody. They wanted to keep their religion sacred because it was for them and their people. When they was in captivity, they felt their history was very important, and they didn't want anybody else to come in and defile it. But now in times of war, we have 20,000, 100,000, all these Edomites. We can't kill all of them because we can use them to help us against the Romans, but the only way we can trust them is if we cause them to adopt our religion. This right here was an act of treason, but it had to be done. He had to make this decision. Am I going to kill all of them, or am I going to use them to help us fight against the Romans? You're feeling me? All right, let's move forward. All right, now this is some more information about Antipater, but what I want you to understand is that the installation of Herod the Great, who's an Edomite, as king in 37 BC, made Israel a Roman client state and marked the end of the Hasmonean dynasty. It was the last dynasty that arose in the Grecian Empire when they took over southern Judah. Yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
There's a lot of teachings going that I've heard from many circles that King Herod, the Edomite, was a Laban and not a true Edomite of ruddy complexion, but true Edomite, a true Laban.
Yes.
So these were part of what we call today the European Jews.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yes or no to the question I asked though.
Huh?
Yes or no to the question.
About Herod? Yes.
That was a Laban Edomite.
As far as his complexion, yes. Because if you read the historians, they do talk about him and what he looked like. So yes, I agree.
So they were no longer looking like the true Edomites of ancient times when they were actually fighting with us, the true Hebrew Israelites.
Exactly, because they were blending in with us.
Okay. So
you following me? Alright. No problem. Yeah, we're gonna do the question and answer at the end. So
I just want to get that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So if you have another question to follow that, I'll be more happy to answer it for you.
I would wait until after the question and answer.
No problem, Aldo. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I'm building off what he says. Yes, they started to look like the Europeans because the Europeans or the Romans were choosing the Edomites that looked closely like them. So Herod was lighter or fairer in complexion, and the Edomites were easier to distinguish than the Israelites. Their complexion was much different. So yes, I agree with what the elder was saying here. And this is why the Romans favored them. Because number one, they didn't care if the Romans came in because that was the land of Judah. They didn't care what they did to the Hebrews. The Hebrews were warriors. They're like, yo, y'all not just going to come in here and do A, B, and C. They always put up the fight. The Idumeans, they never put up a fight against the Romans. The Romans said, oh, we could work with them. We could work with them. But we got to get some of them that look kind of like us so we can trust them a little bit. All right? Y'all with me? You with me? All right. So we're going to move forward, all right? I'm going to move forward. This is some more of the history. All right. Now, the hypothetical conversion process of the Edomites, we don't know exactly what the conversion process was. But if anybody here studies Judaism, you understand that roughly there's 3 stages right here within Judaism in regards for a Gentile to be converted. Because now the Edomites were considered Gentiles, or the Goyim, because they was on the outside, they were not part of Yaakov, okay? Or Yaakov, all right? So one thing that we can look at from a lot of this, I'm not going to read all of this, but circumcision for the men, because remember, Hyrcanus said, listen, y'all need to be circumcised, immersion in a ritual bath for both men and women, offering a sacrifice called korban in the temple. This requirement is deferred while the temple does not exist until such a time as it may be rebuilt. Now, in that period, the temple was rebuilt. You had Ezra and Nehemiah, they went back with the children of Israel in Persian captivity, they rebuilt the temple. So now they was making them do these 3 things. But if you look here, there's nothing there about the Tanakh. They're not encouraging the Edomites that you got to read and know the Tanakh. No, because that's not their history. And if you read the Tanakh, it does not favor the Edomites. So the Edomites not going to be too happy with that, but they're okay with this oratory because now we can go in there and kind of manipulate a little bit things once we start to reign and rule. But that Tanakh, really, that written word is speaking against us. All right? You following me? Okay, so let's move forward. All right, move forward that. All right. So now, the exodus of the majority of true Hebrew Israelites from Israel. The siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD was a decisive event of the first Jewish-Roman war. The Roman army, led by the future Emperor Titus, with Tiberius Julius Alexander as in second command, besieged and conquered the city of Jerusalem, which had been occupied by Jewish defenders in 66 AD. All right? The siege ended with the sacking of the city and destruction of the famous Second Temple. The destruction of both the first and second temples is still mourned annually at the Jewish fast Tishra B'Av. All right, the Arch of Titus, celebrating the Roman sack of Jerusalem and the temple, still stands in Rome. Josephus claims that 1.1 million people were killed during the siege, of which a majority were Jewish, and that 97,000 were captured and enslaved, including Simon Bar Giora and John of Giscala. Many fled to the areas around the Mediterranean. This is where you get the Sephardim, right? If you look at another source, General Vespasian and his son Caesar Titus fought against the Eunians. Millions of Eunians fled into Africa, among other places, fleeing from Roman persecution and starvation during the siege. Okay? And this is another quote right here saying, many of the Israelites who managed to escape their persecutors during the Roman-Jewish War subsequently migrated into West Africa, and 1,600 years later, some of their descendants were captured and brought to America in chains by slave traders. This is how we got some of the customs and the traditions of a lot of the Hebrew Israelites who migrated into Africa because the Romans were seeking them out. The reason why some of them were able to go into Africa and hide because there was of a similar complexion to the people that were living there, and it would be very difficult for the Romans to discover them while they were in this land. All right, you follow me? All right, but remember, you saw a portion of them that went towards the Mediterranean, and some of them settled in what's called modern-day the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal. This is where you get the Sephardim from. All right, you follow me? Okay, so let's move forward. Okay. After the siege of Jerusalem, 70 AD, many true Israelites fled into the Mediterranean, becoming the Sephardic Jews, and into Africa, and some Edomite Jews fled to the Caucasus regions due to their mountainous nature. You follow me? Okay. Okay, the Jews who stayed behind were mostly Edomite Jews now, because now the Edomites are considered Jews. Because now they're practicing their religion. Before that, they had their own religion. Now, it's very difficult to tell who they are, besides, I guess, their culture and their lack of understanding what the Tanakh was, because they never read the Tanakh. They're just going by the oral Torah, what's being spoken to them, because they were not allowed to touch the Tanakh because that was holy. So now you got them calling themselves Jews now, okay? And it says here, the Jews who stayed behind were mostly Edomite Jews who had good relations with the Romans. So the Romans going in, destroying the temple, the Edomites don't care. We didn't wreck that temple. If you destroy it, all right, whatever. Persecuting the Hebrews, and the Edomites are like, okay, we're going to step back for a second. Let y'all do your thing. Because that was their history. They were doing that even in the Tanakh, right? All right, now, the interesting thing was there was a second revolt, right? So the second revolt is the Jews had good relations with Romans until the second Jewish revolt, when they, along with some true Hebrew Israelites, a few still stayed in the land, were expelled from Jerusalem for good and fled north to the Caucasus region. Y'all know what the Caucasus region is? Okay, I'm about to show you that. Right? Now this is some history I have right here that explains that, but let's jump to this quote right here. Another influx of Jewish refugees into various trans-Caucasian regions took place after the destruction of the Second Temple at Jerusalem 70 CE. This is from the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia. The height of the influx during the first centuries of Christianity is confirmed by the chronicler Phastorus of Byzantium, who reports that the Persians under King Sapor II invaded Armenia and took with them to South Persia more than 75 Jewish captives, the progeny of those who had previously come to the Trans-Caucasus from Palestine. Subsequently, they were joined by the other Jews from more western regions, from Asia Minor, the Crimea Peninsula, and especially from Byzantium, to escape from the severe persecutions which they had been suffering at the hand of Emperor Justinian in the 6th century CE. It is evident that Jewish immigration into the Caucasus took place not only at different times, also from different directions. Now you have Edomites, posing as Jews, that are migrating from where? Judah, and going north to the Caucasus Mountains. Very interesting. Now if you look, I have two images here. They look like the same place, right? They look similar, right? On this side, you have Mount Seir. This is the Caucasus Mountains. So, if the Edomites were escaping, and they was going to some mountain regions, you think they would be at home, right? That's why you had an influx of them go to the Caucasus Mountains, because it's just like their home back in Mount Seir. Y'all feeling me? Following me? Okay, so let's move forward. All right, now, the Edomite Jewish influence on the conversion of the Khazarian Empire to Judaism. How many of y'all heard about the Khazars? Y'all familiar with them in here? Okay. Now, this is from the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia. It was chiefly due to the cultural superiority of the Gagastan Jews. If you do research on that, you'll see that these were Edomite converts. Okay? That the Kahan, which is the name of the king of Khazar, of the mighty state of the Khazars, were converted to Judaism together with his court and part of the Khazar population between the 8th and 9th centuries. It was only by degrees that the Jewish teachings gained a foothold among the population. Now, if you want to know who the Khazars are, the Khazars were semi-nomadic Turkish people who created what for its duration was the most powerful polity to emerge from the breakup of the Western Turkish steppe empire, known as the Khazar Khanate of Khazaria. For some 3 centuries, the Khazars dominated the vast area extending from the Volga Don steppes to the eastern Crimea and the northern Caucasus. Now, these people were Turkish people. They were very brutish in appearance. Some of the Islamic scribes who viewed them said they had red hair. Some of them had blonde hair. They had blue eyes. They were very fair in complexion, meaning they were very light-skinned. Now you have the Edomites that are going into this nation and influencing the nobility of this kingdom to convert to Judaism. Well, why is that? Because you have one side that's Christianity, another side that's Islam, and in order for them not to pay tribute to either nation, they said, man, we got to emerge with our own religion, but they don't respect our pagan religion. What can we do? The Edomites is like, yo, you can convert to Judaism. They said, well, I don't know if they're going to respect Judaism. So what the king did was he called an individual, one of the nobility from the Byzantine Empire, which is Christianity, and one from the Caliphate from Islam, and he was asking them a question. They said, well, do y'all believe in Abraham? Christians say, yeah, we believe in Abraham. Asked the Muslims, do you believe in Abraham? Yeah, we believe in Abraham. So they started to go through all of the Jewish prophets, and they saw that the Christians and the Muslims accepted them and was okay with them. So they say, you know what? Yeah, if we pick this religion, we don't have to pick a side and pay tribute, but at the same time, we could be respected as the third entity, because if you keep reading this, and I don't want to give you too much, they emerged as a huge empire that prevented the Arabs from coming into East Europe. And they were picking sides at different times. Sometimes when the Christian and Byzantine was beefing with them, they would side with the Muslims and go and destroy them. Sometimes when the Muslims would tell them, oh, you gotta convert to Islam, and said, no, we don't want to do that, they side with the Christians. So they were playing the part in the middle of both sides. And they converted to Judaism because the Edomite Jews convinced them of doing so. And they trusted the Edomite Jews because they knew of their history dealing with the Romans. You understand what I'm saying? Are you following me? You follow? Okay, so we're going to move forward. All right. Now, this right here is something more of the conversion process. Ibn Fania, based on his caliphal mission to the Bulgars, also reported that the core element of the state, the Khazars, were Judaized. Something underwritten by the Quraysh scholar Yaqub Quirik Khwasani around 937. The conversion appears to have occurred against a background of frictions arising from both an intensification of Byzantine missionary activity in and from Crimea to the Caucasus, and Arab attempts to wrest control over the latter in the 8th century CE, and a revolt put down by the Khazars around the mid-9th century is often invoked as in part influenced by the refusal to accept Judaism. And if you look over the periods of time, several scholars have suggested that the Khazars did not disappear after the dissolution of their empire in the 10th century, but migrated west to eventually form part of the core of later Ashkenazim Jewish population of Europe. So now you have these Edomite Jews going in the Caucasus Mountains. They were there for hundreds of years. Why? Because if they're being persecuted by the Romans, if you're being persecuted by the Christians, what's the safe place to go? A place where you can convince them if they're a Judaism state, we can go there and get solace. The problem was you had a lot of real true Hebrew Israelites at that time were mostly in Africa, or they were down there in Peninsula, which we call the Sephardim. That's where the majority of the real Hebrew Israelites was. These Edomites who were converts, where a portion, a few of them were true Hebrew Israelites, but the majority of them were Edomites. They went to this Caucasus region. They was at home. They converted them over to Judaism because they said, listen, the best thing to do politically is not to choose either side, is to come up with a religion that they both will respect, and now you will be a formidable foe. Edomites know what they were doing. Very interesting that you read this, because now, if you read anything about the Khazars, guess what? The Khazars never really intrinsically read from the Tanakh. They deal with the Talmud, and they dealt with Judaism. Because if you read from the Tanakh, and you encourage people to read from the Tanakh, and you're an Edomite, guess what it's going to do? People are going to see it and be like, you know what? Yeah, the Most High is really at odds with you guys. You understand what I'm saying? But then they say, no, we Jews. We're not Edomites. That's not us. We're Jews. We're Jews. We were Jewish. Everything refers to us in there. Edomites are very smart. They know exactly what they were doing. The reason why I'm showing you this is because I want you to see the migration pattern. And I'm going to show you scientifically, without a doubt, the migration pattern of these Jewish individuals, okay? Now, I skipped a part, but matter of fact, I'll go back to it. How many of y'all are familiar with the Ashkenazim? Y'all familiar with the Ashkenazim? All right. Ashkenazim Jews are a Jewish ethnic division that coalesced in the Holy Roman Empire around the turn of the first millennium. The traditional language of Ashkenazim Jews consisted of various dialects of Yiddish. Who in here knows what Yiddish is? Y'all know what Yiddish is? The German dialect of what? Hebrew, right? Okay. It says they established communities throughout the Central and Eastern Europe, which had been the primary region of concentration and residence until recent times, evolving their own distinctive characteristics and diasporic identities. Although the copious number of genetic studies on Ashkenazim researching both their paternal and maternal lineages all point to ancient Levantine origins, the studies have arrived at diverging conclusions regarding both the degree and the sources of their non-Levantine admixture. What is this saying? This saying that when they do multiple DNA studies on these Ashkenazim, they see that they also, not only do they have Semitic blood, but they also have Caucasian blood. Where this Caucasian blood came from. If you're true Semitics and you're true Jews, why do you have Caucasian blood? They're looking at the haplotypes in regards to mitochondrial DNA and the Y chromosomal DNA. That's very interesting because we just seen where did they leave from? The majority of them leave from the Khazarian Empire. When the empire dissolved, a lot of the nobility with the people who were loyal to them migrated to Eastern Europe, and they settled in Eastern Europe because at that point in time, guess what? The Romans did not take over that area. The Arabs did not take over that area, so it was very safe for them to go into Silas. Okay? So I want you to read this part here. This is very interesting. Ashkenazi Jews were known for their halakhic learning and Talmudic studies. They were criticized by Sephardim and Jewish scholars in Islamic lands, which was the Mizrahi, for their lack of expertise in Jewish jurisprudence, the Dinim, and general ignorance of what? Hebrew linguistics and literature. If you're a Jewish people, how is the Sephardim, who are some of the real true Hebrew Israelites that was in the Iberian Peninsula, and the Mizrahi, which are the Mizrahadim, which was the true Hebrew Israelites that was hiding amongst the Arab nations, when they look at the Ashkenazim and they study them, they say, listen, these guys are they're really not that astute when it comes to the Hebrew language. For some reason, they're not really that familiar with the Hebrew language. Why? Because a lot of them did not deal with the Tanakh at that time in the past. They were not dealing with the Tanakh, they were dealing with the oral Torah. And I'm going to show you what they did with the oral Torah, which was very, very just, I would say just very wicked, because they took something that was only supposed to be for the Jews, or the real children of Judah, and they twisted it and conformed it to something of their own. This is what the Edomites do. They find any way to supplant or take over what was the inheritance of Judah or Israel and make it their own. Now, this is them here saying that the Jewish scholars and the Sephardim accuse them, saying, y'all don't really know your own background, or your own religion, or your own literature, or even your own language. Okay? If you read here, it says Yiddish emerged as a result of language contact with various High German vernaculars in the medieval period. But what happened after the medieval period? Well, the Khazars, who were Edomites mixed with these Turks who are Yaphites, and they migrated to Eastern Europe, they started to develop their own language. Why? It's very important because now, if you are converting people to Judaism and you're speaking true Hebrew, right? If you're converting people to Judaism and speaking your own Hebrew, when you go settle into a different land, in order for you to be identified by the people there, you're going to speak your own dialect. You're not going to stick with the strict Hebrew, because then you have to go back to the Tanakh. You're going to be reminded of your history if your ancestors know that you were Edomites, and then you're going to despise your own religion. Are you following me? Everybody following me? Okay, so we're going to move forward. All right. So now, Encyclopedia Britannica, 15th edition says, Khazars, confederation of Turkic and Iranian tribes that established a major commercial empire in the second half of the 6th century, covering the southeastern section of modern European Russia. In the middle of the 8th century, ruling classes adopted Judaism as their religion. Okay, Encyclopedia Judaica. Khazars, a national group of general Turkic-type independent sovereign in Eastern Europe between the 7th and 10th centuries. During part of this time, the leading Khazars professed Judaism. In spite of the negligible information of an archaeological nature, the presence of Jewish groups and the impact of Jewish ideas in Eastern Europe as considerable during the Middle Ages. Groups have been mentioned as migrating to Central Europe from the east, often have been referred to as Khazars, thus making it impossible to overlook the possibility that they originated from within the former Khazar Empire. Ashkenazim, the Ashkenazim are the Jews whose ancestors lived in German lands. It was among Ashkenazi Jews that the idea of political Zionism emerged, leading ultimately to the establishment of the State of Israel. In the late 1960s, Ashkenazi Jews numbered some 11 million, about 84% of the world Jewish population. Last quote. The primary meaning of Ashkenaz and Ashkenazim in Hebrew is Germany and Germans. This may be due to the fact that the home of the ancient ancestors of the Germans in Medea, which is the biblical Ashkenaz, Krauss is of the opinion that in the early medieval ages, the Khazars were sometimes referred to as the Ashkenazim. About 92% of all Jews, or approximately 14,500,000, are Ashkenazim. That's because they're not taking into account of the other Hebrew Israelites who migrated into Africa, and the majority of them that went to the Sephardim, that went to Europe. But what happened was, when the Christians started to take control of Europe in 1492, the king of Spain kicked the Sephardim out and said, yo, y'all gotta go because this is a Christian nation now. So they had to flee where? Most of them went back into Africa, and some of them went out to the Middle East. But this is very interesting that we talk about that because there's a distinction between the Sephardim, the African Hebrews, and also these Jews or Edomite Jews that went to the Turkish regions and merged also into Eastern Europe. All right? These are two books. I know some of y'all are familiar with Arthur Koestler and the 13th Tribe. How many of y'all read that book or know about that book? There's another book, The Jews of Khazaria, 2nd edition. And these are two scholarly works that show you the migration of these Jewish groups coming into the Khazarian nation, converted them to Judaism, because it didn't happen overnight. It was a process that took place. And then telling you how they migrated from Khazaria into Eastern Europe. Now this is interesting now, because the only way you can be a Jew and blend in Eastern Europe, you have to be that complexion. So if you're a Shemite mixing with Japhites, obviously you can get away with this. Are you following me? If you're an African, you're going into Europe. You're going to African Jew or Sephardim who are dark in complexion too, they're going to be discovered out, and you can't hide in Eastern Europe because of your skin complexion. All right, you following me? Okay, let's move forward. Okay, now this is very important. The religion and language of the Ashkenazi Edomites reformed to pose as Jewish peoples. Orthodox Judaism is the approach to religious Judaism which adheres to the interpretation and application of the laws and ethics of the Torah as legislated in the Talmudic text by the Tanaim and the Amorim, and subsequently developed and applied by the later authorities known as Gaonim, Rishonim, and Acharonim. Orthodox Judaism is a modern self-conscious identification that for some distinguishes it from traditional pre-modern Judaism, although it was the mainstream expression of Judaism prior to the 19th century. Now I want you to read this next thing because I'm going to show you what they're doing with the Talmud, which was only supposed to be the oral Torah for the real Jews, right? The roots of Orthodox Judaism can be traced to the late 18th or early 19th century as a response to the Age of Enlightenment, okay? Jewish emancipation and the Hashkalah, whereby elements within German Jewry sought to reform Jewish belief and practice. Reform Jewish belief and practice in the early 19th century. Okay, look at this. They rejected claims of absolute divine authorship of the Torah. Now, why would a Hebrew Israelite say that the Torah is not divinely inspired? Unless you're trying to find some way to wrestle people away from that and really come towards your religion. I'm going to show you why this is very, very important, okay? Orthodox Judaism, as it exists today, is an outgrowth that claims to extend from the time of Moses, to the time of the Mishnah and Talmud, through the development of the oral Torah and rabbinic literature until the present time. Jewish historians also note that certain customs of today's Orthodox are not continuations of past practice, but instead represent innovations that would have been unknown prior to prior generations. Are you listening to what I'm saying? Are y'all following me what I'm saying? What these Edomites are doing to the religious and the customs and traditions of the true Hebrew Israelites, they're reforming it. Did the Most High tell them to do that? Of course the Most High didn't do it, but now they got to form their own identity. Now you're in a different land. Now we got to change our identity. And now let me show you what they did with this religion. I'm going to show you what they did, all right? Now, Hasidic or Hasidic Judaism overlaps significantly with Haredi Judaism in its engagement with the secular and commercial world, and as regards social issues, it differs, however, in its origins and relatedly in its focus. All right, let's move forward. Now, Yiddish is the historical language of the Ashkenazi Jews. If you're a true Hebrew Israelite, why would you want to create a foreign dialect? Why not go to the original tongue? Right? I mean, you would think that so you could stay close to your ancestors, right? No, there's a reason why they changed it up. Okay? It originated during the 9th century in Central Europe. Well, who was going to Europe during the 9th century? The Khazarian Jewish Edomites. Providing the pre-existing language of the Nassian Ashkenazi community with an extensive Germanic-based vocabulary. Yiddish is written with a fully vocalized alphabet on the Hebrew script. But what's the definition of Jewish? Because I keep hearing them say this a lot. Now, these are the scholars, the white scholars that are writing about this history. They're using the word Jewish very, very interestingly. They know what they're talking about. If you look here in the Collins English Dictionary, the word Jewish is an adjective of peoples is of or relating to or characteristic of Jews, but as a noun it's referring to Yiddish. That's interesting. Why would they put that there? Okay. Another dictionary says it's an adjective of or pertaining to the characteristic of Jews or Judaism. As a noun and formal, it's also Yiddish. So when you're saying Jewish, you're referring to the people that speak Yiddish, who are of or pertaining to or who are like the true Hebrew Israelites. You're never going to see the term Hebrew Israelite there, or Hebrews. They're not going to mention that there. They know what they're talking about. So let me show you where we're going with that. What is Zionism? Anybody here know what Zionism is? You know what Zionism is? Okay. All right, that's cool. Zionism is a nationalist and political movement of Jews and Jewish culture that supports the reestablishment of a Jewish nation state in the territory defined as the historic land of Israel. Zionism emerged in the late 19th century in Central and Eastern Europe. Who were the Jews there? The Ashkenazim, right? As a national revival movement, and soon after this, most leaders of the movement associated the main goal with creating the desired state in Palestine, then an area controlled by the Ottoman Empire. A religious variety of Zionism supports Jews upholding their Jewish identity, opposes the assimilation of Jews into other societies, and have advocated the return of Jews to Israel as a means for Jews to be the majority in their own nation. What? In your own nation? Interesting. And to be liberated from anti-Semitic discrimination, exclusion, and persecution that have been historically occurred in the diaspora. After almost 2 millennia of existence of Jewish diaspora without a national state, the Zionist movement was founded in the late 19th century by secular Jews. You hear the language, what they're saying? They know what they're talking about. Largely as a response by Ashkenazi Jews to rising anti-Semitism in Europe. Now, they were of the same people of the Europeans, and why would the Europeans be anti-Semitic towards them? There's a reason for that. They have Japhetic lineage in them, but they're also Shemitic, but they're not full Japhite. So you had other tribes of Europeans that were there who identified these distinct people. They knew who they were. But now, if you keep reading this, look, exemplified by the Dreyfus Affair in France and the anti-Jewish programs in the Russian Empire, the political movement was formally established by the Austro-Hungarian journalist Theodor Herzl in 1897, following the publication of his book, Der Judenstaat. At that time, the movement sought to encourage Jewish migration to the Ottoman Palestine. The movement was eventually successful in establishing Israel on May 14th, what? 1948. In the Hebrew calendar, they give you the Hebrew calendar right here, as a homeland of the Jewish people. Are you following what I'm saying here? Mm-hmm. Jewish people. In 1890s, Theodor Herzl infused Zionism with a new ideology and practical urgency, leading to the first Zionist Congress at Bastei-Yau in 1897, which created the World Zionist Organization. Herzl's aim was to initiate necessary preparatory steps for the attainment of a Jewish state. Let's move forward. In 1903, the Zionist Congress declined an offer by the British to establish a homeland in Uganda. They wanted to make a homeland for the state of Israel in Africa. That's crazy, right? Lobbying by a Russian Jewish immigrant, Chaim Weizmann, and feared that American Jews would encourage the U.S. to support Germany, culminating in the British government's Balfour Declaration. Anybody heard of the Balfour Declaration before? Of 1917, which endorsed the creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Now the Europeans are working with these Ashkenazim Edomite Jews to do what? Form a Jewish state in Palestine. And this is what it says. His Majesty's government view would favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in other countries. So what they're saying is, okay, now the Ottoman Empire, which was an Arab empire, when they was going to war with the European states, and what happened was, after the war, World War I, the League of Nations was dividing up Palestine. All the old Ottoman Empire, they were dividing it up and giving it back to the Europeans. And guess who had the land of Palestine? Britain. And now Britain is saying to the Zionists, Edomites, that, hey, yeah, we'll help you get that land. Well, why are they so happy to help them? They're just so willing to help them. There's a reason for that. Now look at the year I'm talking about, 1917. They didn't become a state until 1948. You don't see that? That's almost 30 years removed. This process didn't just happen overnight. In 1922, the League of Nations adopted the declaration and granted to Britain the Palestinian mandate. The mandate was secure establishment of the Jewish national home and the development of self-governing institutions, and also safeguard the civil and religious rights of all the inhabitants of Palestine, which is a lie, irrespective of race or religion. Wiseman's role in obtaining the Balfour Declaration led to his election as a movement's leader. He remained in that role until 1948 and then became the first president of Israel. Now, this is the actual letter that was sent by the British Prime Minister to our Rothschild that was residing in where? Britain. Rothschilds were over the Bank of Britain. We're going to see that in a minute. That's remember I said, why were they so easy or happy to help them? We're going to see. This is just the text right here. Let's move forward. All right? Now, I want to show you something very interesting. Y'all didn't know it, now you're going to know it. Play a quick video right here. The video is about 4 minutes. Look what I have up there at the top. Hitler's role in helping the Edomite Zionists establish the state of Israel. What? Hitler's role in helping the Edomite Zionists establish the state of Israel. You're not going to get this in your history books. But I'm going to show you how Hitler helped these Edomite Zionists establish the state of Israel. Hitler helped them. If you want to reference, this is a great DVD right here. It's called The Nazi-Zionist Connection, The Final Solution to Adolf Hitler. You can get that from www.hitlerdvd.com. This is a great in-depth book that shows you from start to finish about his life and how he was incorporated into the Zionist movement. And I'm going to show you, well, matter of fact, I'm going to let this guy speak. This guy right here is Eustace Mullins. He used to work in the Air Force. He traveled extensively to Germany, and he was responsible for recording a lot of the history behind the Jews, behind Adolf Hitler, and everything that was going on with the Third Reich. I'm going to let him speak something for you right now. Before I do that, what does the word Holocaust mean in Hebrew? Anybody? Holocaust is a Hebrew word. It means sacrifice. Somebody was sacrificed for the state of Israel to come into place. Let me play this for you.
Because you've never been told
Can you hear it?
what the origin of Nazi is. NA is National Socialism, which was the German Nazis. And in 1923, there was a double agent who came to Hitler, and he said to Hitler, look, your Nazi party is not, your National Socialist Party is not getting off the ground. You need an alliance. And he suggested that they allow the Zionist Party. So the NA of National Socialism joined with the Zionist Party in the World Zionist Party in 1923, and ever after was known as the Nazis, NAZI.
Wow.
The ZI was for Zionists, but of course no one knew that, because our popular mythology is that the terrible Nazis were attacking the Jews. But what we were never told is there was a great schism in the Jewish community of the world between the Zionists and the non-Zionists. You see, the non-Zionists were the Orthodox Jews who believed you could not have a Jewish state until the Jewish Messiah came. They didn't acknowledge Christ as Messiah, so they were waiting for their own Jewish Messiah to come. Then you would have a Jewish state, and that Jewish state would rule the world. But the Rothschilds in 1828 decided they couldn't wait for the Jewish Messiah, so they started what they call Reform Judaism under Moses Hess. And Reform Judaism said, yes, you can have a Jewish state before the Messiah comes. And the reason you could have it was the Rothschilds had made so much money, they said, we'll buy our own state. So the Rothschilds sent people out to the Middle East to have Jewish settlements, and, which is today the state of Israel. Totally created by the Rothschild money. And so Reform Judaism then became the cause of a great schism between Orthodox Jews and Reform Jews. Now, no one has ever told you this, I'm sure, but you think that the Jewish community is monolithic. In fact, it's split sharply down the middle. But even today, they have riots in the Jewish parliament between the Orthodox Jews and the Reform Jews. And they cannot agree on anything because the basic premise is a fundamental disagreement over whether a Jewish state should even exist today. So in Germany in 1923, the German Jews were quite prosperous and quite happy, and they were not interested in becoming Zionists, and they were not interested in going to Palestine. After all, they had beautiful mansions in Germany, they had symphony orchestras, they had art, they had everything, and they were accepted in the community. As Ezra Pound said, Germany was the least anti-Jewish country in Europe.
You hear that?
When you went over to Poland and Russia, you had a very strong feeling against Jews. But in Germany, they were accepted and happy, so why would you ever have an anti-Jewish government in Germany?
It makes sense.
And of course, Hitler, aligning himself with the Zionists, he said, after all, you're right. He said, we have the same goals. And so he allied with the Zionist party, and the mission of the Nazis was to force the anti-Zionist Jews to accept Zionism.
And go back.
And this is what the concentration camps were about. They put the anti-Zionist Jews in the concentration camps, and they were placed under the direct administration of the Sonderkommandos, who were the Zionist Jews. So the concentration camps were run by the Zionist Jews in order to punish and get rid of the anti-Zionist Jews, which they did. And of course, that's a part of the Holocaust that you were never told, that this was a fundamental Jewish disagreement, which the German people, Daniel Goldhagen wrote a book in which he said all Germans cooperated in their anti-Jewish feeling and the Holocaust, which was not true at all. The Germans did not even know what was going on, most of them. It's just like in the United States, when we were perfecting the atomic bomb and bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the American people knew nothing about it. It was forbidden to mention the atomic bomb. I was serving the Air Force at that time. We never heard of any atomic mission or atomic bomb until the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. So you could say the American people are guilty of the greatest atrocity, the dropping of the atomic bomb on Japanese civilians. But that isn't true. The American people knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about it in the airport. And I was right there. So these things go on without the knowledge of the people or the approval of the people. But of course, they have to accept the results. These things happen, and we're stuck with it. So this is the real story of Zionism, that the Nazis. So then, well, if the Nazis had allied with Zionists, why didn't the Nazi party survive? Well, what happened was, in 1945, after the German military was defeated, they brought in the German leaders, the German generals, at the Nuremberg trials, tried and convicted and executed. They had to execute them because they didn't want them around to testify that about the alliance between the Nazis and the Zionists.
Did you hear that? You can look this guy up, his credentials are solid. I typically don't go to sources like that, and I like to look up the person, but he's done a lot of research, and he's known for doing a lot of research and grabbing resources during his time in Germany, being in the Air Force, and examining the condition of what was going on. So if you heard what he said, he told you that the reason why the Germans were destroying the Jews is because the Zionists wanted all the Jews to go and help them establish this land in Israel. Some of the Ashkenazi Jews is like, no, we merchants, we got money, we good, we don't want to have nothing to do with that. So the Zionists was like, oh, y'all don't? Okay, so they funded Hitler to destroy them and told them, if y'all didn't leave Europe, we're going to kill you. A lot of them said, no, we're not leaving Europe. Okay, they moved them into concentration camps. And guess who was guarding them? Not no Third Reich men, Zionists, Jews. They were Jews that were captains that were working with the Third Reich. And what happened was in a number of trials after 1945, they executed all of the Third Reich members that were friends and cahoots with the Zionists because they was going to speak out. You on trial, you about to get killed for crimes against humanity. You're going to say, whoa, wait a second. You don't realize that these guys over here paid us to go do what we did. They got rid of them. And the ones who didn't speak, or the ones that were cool, they let them live. So if you want, you can look up the rest of that video. But after World War II happened, now you had this Holocaust, this sacrifice of these Jews to win the empathy from the world to help you support this Jewish state. Y'all feeling me? Yeah. Okay, this sounds like something that Edom would do. I don't know if the real Hebrew Israelites would do something like that. But the United Nations Resolution 181, y'all heard of this one before, right? Okay? The resolution passed by the United Nations General Assembly in 1947 that called for the partition of Palestine in Arab and Jewish states with the city of Jerusalem as a corpus separatatum, which means separate entity, to be governed by a special international regime. The resolution, which was considered by the Jewish community in Palestine to be a legal basis for the establishment of Israel, and which was rejected by the Arab community, was succeeded almost immediately by violence. Palestine had been governed by Great Britain since 1922, remember, after World War I, the League of Nations gave it over to them. Since that time, Jewish immigration to the region had increased, and tensions between Arabs and Jews had grown, because now they're moving more Jews into the land. In April 1947, exhausted by World War II and increasingly intent upon withdrawing from the Middle East region, Britain referred the issue of Palestine to the UN. To investigate a suitable course of action, UN formed the UN Special Committee on Palestine, an inquiry committee made up of members from 11 countries. What countries? Okay. Ultimately, this union delivered two proposals, that of the majority, which recommended two separate states join economically, and that the minority, which supported the formation of a single binational state made up of autonomous Jewish and Palestine areas. The Jewish community approved of the first of these proposals, while the Arabs opposed of the latter. The proposal to partition Palestine, based on a modified version of the UN SCOP majority report, was put to the General Assembly vote on November 29, 1947. The fate of the proposal was initially uncertain, but after a period of intense lobbying by pro-Jewish groups and individuals, the resolution was passed with 32 votes in favor, 13 against, and 10 abstaining. So what was this plan about? Look at this map. The land of Israel, Judah and Israel, this whole land right here had Arabs, and what you're not told is that there were Hebrew Israelite communities that were already in Palestine that had no beef with the Arabs, living in peace. They have no problems. Why? Because they're not trying to create a state there. They're just living in harmony. This is the land our forefathers we want. But what happened was we had these Edomite Zionists get into the picture, saying, no, we want the whole land. Why? The Most High said Edom was going to take possession of this land in the latter days. And then Jacob was going to come up, because that's the heel part. When that age is finished, Most High is coming back. But this is the partition plan. Look what the UN did. These Arabs that were here had no beef with the Hebrews. This is what I'm saying. They had no problems with the Hebrews until this state, you had this partition plan. Now you're telling people you got to leave your land. And now we're going to put Jewish people there. And you're just going to have to deal with it. The Arabs is like, nah, we're not having that. And they started to have war and all this stuff that's going on. This is how you know that we said that the covenant of peace would happen if the Most High was doing this. There was no peace there when this happened. You understand what I'm saying? Y'all follow me? All right. Now here, this council, you see the Star of David. Look what they have up there. I don't see no Torah up there. I don't see no image anyway. This is Theodore Herzl. That's the guy that was talking about who started Zionism. So when they're lobbying right here and convening on this Palestinian partition plan, they're working for this dude, this Edomite. And in one of his works that he wrote, he actually even showed how the Edomites are really the real Jews and not the Jews. Read his work. Read this guy's work. And look who they have up there while they're convening on the state of Israel. This don't sound like the work of the Most High to me. Does that sound like the work of the Most High to you?
No.
That was sent to the president. It says, I have the honor to notify you that the state of Israel has been proclaimed as an independent republic within frontiers approved by the General Assembly of the United Nations in its resolution on November 20th, 1947. So now you have the president of this nation, Israel, send a letter to the president of America, letting him know, yeah, we did it. Why would America care? We're going to see. All right, let's move forward. Look at this. The New York Times. I got a microfiche of the New York Times from that time. Zionists proclaim new state of Israel. Not Hebrew Israelites. Zionists proclaim new state of Israel. Truman recognized it and hopes for peace. Tel Aviv is bombed. Egypt orders invasion. Egypt orders invasion. Interesting. This is one that was there in the Palestinian Post. State of Israel is born. You see this? Now, this is that. Then you had the Arab-Israeli conflict, refers to the political tension and military conflicts between certain Arab countries and Israel. The roots of the modern Arab-Israeli conflict are bound in the rise of Zionism and Arab nationalism towards the end of the 19th century. Territory regarded by the Jewish people as their historical homeland is also regarded by the Pan-Arab movement as historically and presently belonging to the Palestinian Arabs, and in the Pan-Islamic context as Muslim lands. Now, if you read this, this is going to tell you the conflict from when it started in 1947 till they had a peace or ceasefire treaty in 2009, but this is fulfillment of scriptural prophecy. Why? Because Edomites are going to live by the sword. They're not going to live in peace. They're going to live in war. This is not true Hebrews. Hebrews are not going to do things like this because they were living in peace, had no problems, no beef with them. The Edomites say, no, we want this entire land. It was fulfilled in scriptural prophecy. George Friedman, in his book, The End of the Jewish People, pointedly states that the Europeans claiming to be Jews are nothing more than Hebrew-speaking Gentiles, or Yiddish-speaking Gentiles. The late president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, stated on television, "You Jews will never be able to live here in peace because you left here black, but came back white. We cannot accept you." Now you got these Edomites now, mind you, these Edomites mingled with these Turkish peoples. Now these complexions fairly more lighter skinned than when their ancestors were. They were able to mingle and hide amongst the Europeans as the Ashkenazi Jews. Now what they're doing is they're taking back the birthright that was lost by Esau. Look at this. This was before that partition plan. This is after, right? Partition plan. From 1949, 1967, look, this is the Jewish state, this is Palestine, and here in 2000, look how it's looking right now to the present day. Edom is trying to take that entire land by force, living by the sword. You see that? Look what caption up at the bottom. The full occupancy of the land by the Edomites will signify the coming of the Davidic Messiah via prophecy. Once they get the entire land, remember, these Gentiles taking over the land is defilement. The Most High said the Edomites being in this land is defilement. They're trying to take the whole land, but once they do, now we're going to see the end of that age and the beginning of the Davidic Messiah come on the scene, destroy Esau, which they said in the prophecy, and establish the land in the covenant of peace for the true Hebrew Israelites. Y'all feeling me?
Yes, we
All
are.
right, this looks crazy, right? All right. Now look at this. The Israeli government, remember I talked about Reform Judaism? How they didn't deal with the Tanakh, but they deal with the oral Torah, and then they converted it and changed it and twisted it into a brand new religion because the Tanakh does not speak to the Idumean roots. The Israeli government decided by a resolution in 2003 that the descendants of Jewish mother's lineage have the right to migrate to Israel under the entry law. Before then, the Hebrews were allowed to go into the land prior to 1948 and live amongst the Palestinians. They didn't care. The Arabs didn't beef with them. But look what happened. Look at this. Now that they took over, they said they may become citizens only if they formally convert to, reform Orthodox Judaism. That means that if you have Africans that are real Hebrew Israelites, Sephardim who are real Hebrew Israelites, the Mizrahidi that's living in the Arab nations who are real Hebrew Israelites, trying to go back to Israel, you can't unless you adopt their form of Judaism. That's crazy. And if you're found practicing something otherwise, then halakhic law will take you and they will arrest you and bring you before a Sanhedrin or a council and you will be tried. They don't tell you these things over there. And these are African refugees who are Hebrew Israelites trying to come into the land and say, listen, we can prove our legitimacy. They said, no, you can't come in here unless you adopt our form of Judaism. Look at them. And if you look, there's an article that I posted on my Facebook page. If you're not friends with me, then hopefully you will be, where I show that the president of Israel is saying that he's getting rid of all the African Hebrews because they don't belong there. But you know why? But they're not telling you. They refuse to adopt to Reform Judaism. They say we're going to stick with what our ancestors have told us, and we're going to bring us to the land. We have every right to be here that you think that you have. And because now the Edomites have the power, they're sending them back, giving them a hard time. The closer that you got was the Beta Israel. Anyone heard of the Beta Israel or the Ethiopian Hebrews? Well, they were allowed entry in only after they converted to Orthodox Judaism. Before that, they were the quote-unquote tribe of Dan that was hiding out in Ethiopia. And this happened when they ended up in there. This was if I'm not mistaken, This happened before 180 CE and 220 CE when the Talmud or the Oral Torah was actually placed into writing. They had been migrated 100 years before they settled in Ethiopia. They had no idea of this Oral Torah, meaning that they had an idea, meaning they didn't practice it. Now, when they went to them and they discovered that you had this community of 10,000 Ethiopians who are true Hebrew Israelites that are living there, that had no idea what Reformed Judaism is, don't even know what Judaism is, they dealing strictly with just the Tanakh and the Torah, and you're telling them that, no, you can't come in here unless you convert, that goes to show that somebody has an agenda involved. You understand? You got to show allegiance to these Edomite Jews because they have their own religion. If any one of y'all try to go back there and say, listen, I'm Tanakh only, Torah only, they're like, nah, you can't get in here. Not only you got to show us that your mother was Jew, but you got to adopt this religion. And Europeans are allowed to live there as long as they convert to Judaism. They don't have no stock, no relation to anything that has to do with Abraham. But as long as they convert to Judaism, y'all can come in. Okay? Now, I'm going to run through this part. This is just, I talked about Theodore Herzl, so you can write that down if you want to research who he is. But you'll see that he was the progenitor of the Zionist movement. Okay? Also, you have Moses Hess. These are all the culprits involved with this movement. All right? You also have Leon Pixter. So all of these people played a role who were the Edomite Jews that were pushing the Zionist movement to take back the land from the people that was in Israel. Because remember, this is the birthright that Esau lost. All right? Now, I want to read this stuff. Maya Amshel Rothschild, whose real name was actually Bayar, was born in 1744 in the Judengasse, the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt in Maine, Holy Roman Empire. With the help of relatives, Rothschild secured an apprenticeship under Jacob Wolf Oppenheimer at the banking firm of Simon Wolf Oppenheimer in Hanover in 1757. So if you read this, this was the progenitor of the Rothschilds that got involved with Judaism. Now what happened was the Rothschilds, they started off in the Jewish ghetto, the Ashkenazim ghetto, and what happened was he wound up moving up the ranks because he started to work in banking. He learned how banking worked and said, you know what, the best way for banking to really operate is not to bank with the average people, but bank with kings and nations. So this is what he did, learning this from the Oppenheimers. The reason why this is important is because his birth name was Maya Amshel Bayar. But if you look here, Maya Amshel Bayar, 1748, the son of Moses Amshel Bayar, changed his family name to Rothschild after the red shield hexagram that his father used. This was a subtle sign of the allegiance to his Edomite Jewish ancestry. Hitler also used red in his swastika flag to show allegiance to the Edomite Zionist cause. Why are you changing your name to Red Shield? What are you trying to tell us? Are you a Jew? Red? And they know red signifies Edom and the Edomites? And now you got the banking financial power to take the land back? Okay? And all this goes on to the Rothschilds. In 1917, Walter Rothschild, second Baron Rothschild, was addressee of the Balfour Declaration that I told you earlier to the Zionist Federation, which committed the British government to the establishment in Palestine of a national home for Jewish people. After the death of James Jacob de Rothschild in 1868, his eldest son, Alphonse Rothschild, took over the management of the family bank and was the most active in support of Eretz, that means land, Israel. The Rothschild family archives show that during the 1870s, the family contributed nearly 500,000 francs, that's hundreds of millions of dollars per year on behalf of Eastern Jewry to the Alliance Israelite Universelle. Baron Edmund James de Rothschild, youngest son of Jacob James de Rothschild, was a patron of the first settlement in Palestine at Rishon LeZion and bought from the Ottoman landlords parts of the land which now makes up present-day Israel. That means they were buying up the land before the edict came forth of 1947 for them to actually possess the land. They were buying up land. They were preparing for this thing. This thing didn't just happen overnight. All right? In 1924, he established the Palestine Jewish Coalition Association, which acquired more than 125,000 acres of land. Black people can't even get 40 acres in a meal, right? And land, and set up business ventures. In Tel Aviv, there's a road, Rothschild Boulevard in Tel Aviv, okay? Named after him, as well as various localities throughout Israel, which he assisted in funding. He funded all this. A park in the Valley Court in Paris, the Park Edmond de Rothschild, is also named after his founder. The Rothschilds also played a significant part in the funding of what? Israel's governmental structure. You're a banker. What are you doing dealing with the governmental structure? All right, James D. Rothschild financed the Knesset building as a gift to the state of Israel, and the Supreme Court of Israel building was donated to Israel by Dorothy D. Rothschild. They're paying for everything in Israel. Who do you think the alliance is going to be towards? Towards them, right? Now look what this guy says, right? This is Nelson Rothschild. So what Meyer Rothschild did was when his empire started to grow, he said, I'm going to keep the business in the family, and I'm going to put one of my sons in each nation in Europe and have them run the bank there, the central bank there. Look what this guy says. He says, I cannot, what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets? The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply. The Edomites are paying the British government, who are Japhites, to help them take back the land because they feel that that's their true inheritance that Esau lost. This is bitterness. This has to happen before the Davidic Messiah comes back. Are y'all following me? I have here the coat of arms here. They have the red in the center. Their ethnicity is Ashkenazim Jewish, and German for red shear, what Rothschild stands for. Okay? Last part, scientific analysis, right? So the question is this, right? This is an article by Aran Alahaik, and he's from the Department of Mental Health in Johns Hopkins University. If you anybody know about Johns Hopkins University, that's a prestigious university. So this is not just some offstream guy I'm just grabbing up. He wrote this great article that I encourage y'all to read called The Missing Link of Jewish European Ancestry, Contrasting the Rhineland and the Khazarian Hypothesis. So I'm going to go over that real quick. Rhineland hypothesis was the Khazarian converted Edomite Jews who settled to be the Ashkenazi were saying that, oh no, we didn't mix with the Khazars, we're not Edomites that migrated to the Caucasus Mountains, no, we're full-blooded Shemites. Full-blooded Shemites. That's what the Rhineland hypothesis says. The Khazarian hypothesis said, no, you're truly Edomites with a portion of the Israelites who migrated to the Caucasus Mountains, and after the dissolution of the kingdom, you moved to Eastern Europe. So now you have the Edomites trying to cover their tracks. What happens is this guy exposed it, because these two hypotheses was like, the last one was in 2010, he used a new technology as far as DNA testing to determine what their lineage was, right? So that's what this article is about. I'm not going to read it because there's a lot of information, but I'm going to go to the conclusion so you can see what this conclusion is. Look at this. All right, so his conclusion is this. We compared two genetic models for European Jewish ancestry depicting a mixed Khazarian, European, Middle Eastern, and Sole Middle Eastern origins. Contemporary populations were used as surrogates to the ancient Khazars and Judeans, and their relatedness to European Jews as compared over a comprehensive set of genetic analysis. Our findings support the Khazarian hypothesis depicting a large Near Eastern Caucasus ancestry, along with Southern European, Middle European, and Eastern European ancestries in agreement with the recent studies and oral and written traditions. We conclude that the genome of the European Jews is a tapestry of ancient populations including Judaized Khazars, Greco-Roman Jews, Mesopotamian Jews, and Judeans, and their population structure was formed in the Caucasus and the banks of the Volga with roots stretching to Canaan and the banks of the Jordan. This is telling you right here that these are Jewish Edomites who migrated to the Caucasus Mountains and migrated to Eastern Europe and became the Ashkenazi Jews. That you guys are saying that you're full-blooded Shemites and you're really not. He exposed them. And this article right here, when it came out, it was peer-reviewed. They agreed with it, but all of a sudden it got hushed. A year later. And this was in 2012. It got hushed. And nobody ever heard from it again. The reason why I had to dig this thing up, I had to really research it and dig this up. So this is what he's saying, right? The Zionists are saying, no, we're full-blooded Shemites, we came from Judah and we migrated over here into Europe and migrated from Europe to Eastern Europe. And his hypothesis, the Khazarian hypothesis said, no, that's not what happened. And what this article was agreeing with was the fact that, no, y'all came from here, and they mentioned Idumea. That term is there, Edomites. You're left from here, you're migrated here to Khazaria. Some of y'all came from Mesopotamia. A few of y'all did come from here, to step farther than a few of y'all. But the majority of y'all came from here, migrated here over this period of time, settled here, and after, you're migrated here to Eastern Europe. And this right here gives you all that information. This article is a great article. You're going to read it. And this is what they're showing, the two different timelines for the two different hypotheses. And the final say, now mind you, after he did this article, nobody else did any kind of research or papers in regards to the subject. They just left it alone, but they covered it up. This is the final say on it, because until you refute it in the scientific community, it stands as law. Y'all feeling what I'm saying? Okay. My conclusion is, I just pretty much wrapped it up. We understand that the prophecy came against Esau because Most High dealt with them how they dealt in accordance to Israel. And based on that, the Edomites said, we're going to possess this land, we're going to take that inheritance back. Most High said, listen, you may think you're going to build what you want to build, but we're going to come back and destroy you. But only when the Davidic Messiah comes, the Davidic Messiah is going to have a covenant of peace. He's going to rebuild his tabernacle, because right now we have the quote-unquote Dome of the Rock that's there right now. And then they're going to be living in harmony, and there's not going to be no Edomites to defile the land. That's very important that you understand that. So what happened was the Edomites over history said, no, we got to find a way to take back Esau's birthright. And as you can see through history, they disguised themselves several times, tried to find several influences who finally in 1948 they was able to take over the land, because the Zionist Jews sacrificed other Jews who did not want to leave, using Hitler's help to gain empathy for the world so they can steal the possession and inheritance from Jacob and reclaim it for themselves. And as you can see, as the map will show the progression, they're almost done with their land. They almost finished. All right? Now, who's the biggest supporter of the Zionist Edomites in Israel? Who do you think is the biggest supporter?
United States.
You guys read, right? Since the October War in 1973, Washington has provided Israel with the level of support dwarfing that given to any other state, domestic state. It has been the largest annual recipient of direct economic and military assistance since 1976. Just remember that letter was sent to Truman in regards to say, yeah, we took over Israel, and from that point on, guess who supported them? The U.S., right? And is the largest recipient in the total since World War II, to the tune of well over $140 billion. Annually. Well, not annually, but total from 1976 to 2004. But I'm going to show you how much they gave them annually. But so far, from 1976 to 2004, they gave them $140 billion, which is more than any relief aid that they've given to any domestic state in the U.S. That's crazy. Why are you doing this? Israel receives about $3 billion in direct assistance each year, roughly 1/5 of the foreign aid budget.
Actually, $4 billion now.
Yes, we have $4 billion now, you're right. And worth about $500 a year for every Israeli. This largesse is especially striking since Israel is now a wealthy industrial state. You're still giving them money and they're doing good, but you're still giving them money. Something else must be going on. With a per capita income roughly equal to that of South Korea and Spain. This is H.R. 4133, the bill that Congress put into effect. This is the updated bill. This was from 2012. 2014, they gave them an extra $1 billion. Just say, we're just going to give you an extra $1 billion. And the reason for the justification, they say here, it says to the expense of Congress regarding the United States-Israel strategic relationship, to direct the president to submit to Congress reports of United States, I really read this says, to exhaust this relationship, to relationship aid, to assist in the defense of Israel, and other purposes. Other purposes normally never noted. They just talk about the strategic part if you read this actual bill. The other purposes is like the gray area. They don't touch that. But they give them $3 billion for their defense. Well, what are you defending against? Maybe because the Most High is about to do that. All right, anyway, so this is the end of my presentation, so I'm done. If you don't have any questions, you can save it for later. I'm sorry for taking up a lot of time. I apologize for that. I was trying to run through this. It's a lot of information. But if you have any question to ask me, feel free to do so. And again, like I said, if you see how much money the U.S. is giving, if you're a little upset that you're not getting jobs and, and the state of Georgia is bankrupt, well, you can see where a lot of that money is going to. Imagine they gave $3 billion to the economy of Georgia. How many jobs would be here? But look who they're giving it to. All right, y'all, I'm done.